the Budget Committee meeting for October 18th to order. And we can start with attendance. So if we could just go around the table, starting with you, Bill.
Bill Cordes, here.
Evelyn Redmond, here.
Richard Fletcher here.
Richard Manzo here.
Mark Lemay, Select Board Member here.
Lauren Dukas. Do I say that I'm here?
Not yet.
No, that's okay.
Samantha Kearns here.
Joe Alexander here.
Jim Craig, Select Board.
Collis Adams, Select Board, here.
Frank Hobbs here.
Kelly Boyer, Selectmen's Rep.
Melanie Renfrew Hebert, Chair.
Stacy Belmore, Vice Chair.
Thank you. So we're meeting today to review an applicant for a vacant Budget Committee position. Pardon? Oh, so sorry. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, so we're convening today in order to review an applicant for the open vacant position on the Budget Committee. Has everyone had a chance to review the application that was submitted?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Did anyone not get an opportunity to review it? Good. So Laura Stevens is here with us today and available to answer any questions that you may have of her and her suitability for being on the Budget Committee. Does anyone have any questions for Laura? Yes.
Madam Chair, I don't have a question necessarily for Laura, but it's more procedural. Is
Thank
Laura a member of the committee until the next election, or does she finish the rest of the term for Jeff O'Brien?
I will defer that to Danielle.
Until the next election.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was my question, too.
Great.
Yes.
I have a couple questions, actually.
Sure.
Thank you for coming tonight. So my first question is, what interests you in being on the Budget Committee?
Sure. So I've felt passionate about getting more involved in town for a while now, since before the last election. I am familiar with the budget process, and I understand how it works from my work in a different town. But I know this is a place I can be helpful and also learn more to continue to be more helpful as I hopefully continue to serve in Goffstown.
Can I follow up?
Yes.
So have you watched any of the Budget Committee meetings? Or?
Yeah, I usually do.
So I'm sure you've seen that we have a lot of presentations from the school and the town departments.
Yep.
So how do you think you're going to be able to analyze need versus wants and question the departments and school board?
I think that's broad. So
Yeah.
It'll depend, different times of year, different years, different priorities will be more apparent. If they're not, I know it's not just me as a committee. I am not without my own opinions and ideas, but I'm good at being objective and listening to the other perspectives to come to a conclusion as far as what does need to happen, in what order it should happen, if things do need to be put off, and what kind of the people are saying and what we need to do to, I guess, serve the most people in the best way.
Yes.
Sorry.
You have a question?
I do. Since you've watched the committees, what are you most surprised about when you've watched?
I don't know if this is okay to say, but I guess the lack of argument that there is. I just figured with a large group there'd be more back and forth, but people seem pretty respectful, even when there are disagreements or people are unclear about what others are thinking or working towards. Yeah.
Last one, I promise. And what are your 3 favorite things about Goffstown?
My 3 favorite things are Glen Lake.
When it's full, right?
And the downtown, huh?
When it's full,
When
right?
it's full, yeah, right now it's a little sad. And downtown, and the fact that, and this sounds cliche, but it's true, I've always lived in a big city, and I didn't consider this a small town, but the amount of people I know sort of accidentally, whether it's because my kids have gone to school with people or just being out and about, makes it feel like an actual real community where you can talk to people and listen to people and ideas can kind of be heard. I haven't experienced that yet, at least in the community I live in. Was that 3 things? 2 things? Let's see what else. There's so many things. I think just our location. Yeah. Yeah, the way I feel about the community, the location, and the downtown with Glen Lake.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Yeah.
Chair.
Yes, Lauren?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming. Thank you for submitting your application to help us start the budget season. It's kind of a fun time to come in. You ran for the Budget Committee as a write-in candidate
I did.
last time, and you lost.
Yes.
What have you done since then to kind of keep current with our process or anything budgetary? I know I see that you are on the library trustees and you're a librarian in Salem. So what have you done in the meantime to kind of stay current with budgetary concerns, particularly this town?
Sure. I have, like I said, I watched most of the budget and school board meetings, and I think I've been just talking to more people and paying more attention to what's going on in town, whether it's just the vibe or the feeling, or actually getting out in the community to help people. I have been volunteering in different capacities. I mean, the whole time I've lived here, I've volunteered in different capacities, but I've kept that up because I was, before the last election, I was pretty motivated, and I wanted to make sure that this is something I really wanted to continue on, and with that, I wanted to keep up with what was going on in town and kind of pay attention to what people are saying and what people are doing. And yeah, I joined the library trustees. They had an opening, and I feel like this is my next step to be more helpful.
Laura, I have a question for you, just one. My question is, the Budget Committee schedule
Yeah.
is a little hectic when we're in the process. Can you talk about whether or not you could commit to that schedule?
Sure, yeah. I'm familiar with the schedule, and that is something I can commit to. I'd make it priority, especially during the season that it's, the most kind of intense. That's not something you would have to worry about.
Are there any other questions for Laura? Yes, Frank.
Hi, Laura, thank you for coming. I was wondering if you could clarify your role in Salem. You said you're a librarian or a trustee or both?
No, I'm the assistant director at the library in Salem. So
Okay.
with that, I am a side part, but I am often part of the budget and town meeting as an administrator in town.
Okay. Another question, just more of on a clarification. I was made aware of a book that you had recommended a while back, and it caused me a bit of concern. Are you familiar with the Pink, Blue, and You book?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Through looking at this, it looks like it was designed for 4 to 8-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Okay. The concern I have, and this is actually in the book,
Yep.
it says, loaded with kid-friendly questions, this opens the door to conversations surrounding gender and sexuality and everyone's right to be who they are.
Madam
Yep.
Chair, how is this pertinent to budgetary concerns? I'm sorry I didn't wait to be recognized, but
Yeah.
this is a budget meeting.
Yeah, if you can wait, I'll get to that. I have a 4-year-old, and I was wondering how chatting about sexuality is something that's appropriate.
Sure.
And
Is
Well,
this a question I should answer?
I'm going to interrupt for a moment. While I think that any question you have about what would be appropriate for your child is a valid question. I just don't think this is the forum for that. We're looking to see whether or not the candidates put before us would be recommended for the Budget Committee, not for their role in their outside positions.
Madam Chair, you asked if there were questions. This is a
Yes.
question that I have, and I was asking her to explain. I wasn't even finished the question. The question was to clarify why she had recommended this and her thoughts on it.
I'm
I was
happy to
interrupted
answer
by
if it's
two board-
appropriate for me to do so.
Right, I was interrupted by two people before I even got to that.
Okay, please continue.
No, I'm sorry, I'm going to object. I would have a problem with anyone
Okay.
answering that question in this forum. That is not a budgetary question nor something that should be brought up in this meeting, and I would have a personal problem with that question being asked in this meeting. This has nothing to do with the budget meeting, and what you want your 4-year-old to read may be different than what I want my 4-year-old to read, based on our beliefs and our values. And me choosing her to be on this committee has nothing to do with my sexuality, your sexuality, or her sexuality. It has to do with her budgetary and her qualifications for this position.
It has nothing to do with her opinions or viewpoints.
You-
I'm asking.
it does, actually.
I'm asking for her to clarify her thoughts about recommending this book,
So could you clarify why this is important to the budget committee?
because this caused me concern. I have a 4-year-old, and I'm very familiar. My 4-year-old right now doesn't tie. She's very bright. She doesn't tie her shoes. I don't see how opening the door about sexuality makes any sense.
In a budget meeting, it doesn't make sense.
Well, we were asked to, if there are any questions. That's a question I have. You're telling me that's not appropriate.
Yes, Lauren.
Thank you. If we're talking about questions of moral judgments or character, you're asking for opinions based on policy that we don't set. We're an oversight budgetary committee. It's my opinion as a committee member that it's not an appropriate question to ask of our candidates. It's divisive. It has no place on the floor. It has no place in consideration for a candidate in this position. Maybe a school board where they set more policy and procedure, but it's not germane to our proceedings at all.
I don't understand how it's divisive to ask somebody's opinion on something.
You're asking about a book about transgender rights in a town budget committee.
Well, there are going to be votes on where money goes with our town.
We have not once seen any line item in a budget regarding any sort of gender identity, any sort of support.
It has nothing
based
to
in
do with
that.
gender identity. I was asking her on why she had recommended it.
As a librarian, we're not asking for her membership. We're not considering her application based on her librarian or her policies as a assistant librarian, correct?
Assistant director.
Thank you. We're asking as a member of the community for budgetary issues. I could ask her, do you bag your leaves or do you bring them to the transfer station? It's completely immaterial. So I really don't think that this should be a question that's entertained by the committee whatsoever. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Lauren. Due to the nature of the question and the fact that it does seem to be outside the scope of the Budget Committee, Frank, I would ask you that if you have questions from Laura regarding her position in another capacity, that you could take them up with her outside of the Budget Committee process.
And
But
I'd
if
be
you
happy to
have-
talk to you, Frank.
If you have questions pertaining to her abilities and skills regarding being a Budget Committee member, I would encourage you to ask. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is just solely around impartiality of
Sure.
being on the Budget Committee. So I know you work for the town of Salem.
Yes.
But you're a resident of Goffstown.
Right.
Goffstown has a public library. So my question is, are you, or do you feel like you'd be able to separate those two conflicts, or if they are conflicts, maybe not necessarily?
Right.
And how do you think you'd do that?
Sure. I don't see it as a conflict, and I think I can very much separate one I guess, line of duty with another or something that would be my career versus helping in the town. Those are two separate things to me, unless someone were to come to me with a question that is my expertise because of my career. But I don't see it being an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Laura? Hearing none, is there a motion regarding Laura's application? Yes, Evelyn.
I move to approve Laura's application to serve on the Budget Committee until the end of the term in March.
I have a motion from Evelyn to approve Laura's application to continue until the end of the term. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lauren. So I have a second from Lauren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Keep your hands up, guys.
Yep, sorry.
Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. Any abstentions? Hearing none, what was the count?
I had 2 opposed, no abstentions, that means.
The motion's approved. Laura, welcome to the Budget
Thank
Committee.
you. Thank you.
And we will.
I'm going to do it now.
We have to do it now.
Okay. So we'll take a moment to take a recess. Thank you. We'll take a brief recess so that Laura can be sworn in. Committee for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
Oh, Richard Fletcher. Richard got me. Got it.
So motion by Richard Manzo, seconded by Richard Fletcher. And with that, the Budget Committee meeting is, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Sorry, I'm not opposed. Hearing none, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to welcome you all to the Select Board meeting for October 18th. We'll start by doing a roll call for Select Board members. Kelly Boyer.
Collis Adams. Jim Craig.
Mark Lemay.
And Chairman Georgiantis cannot be here this evening, so it'll be the four of us, joined by our Budget Committee members. The time is 6:26. Sorry to convert military time real fast. So for this evening, we have a list. The order for tonight will be the town overview by our town administrator. Derek, that's you. Sewer and Enterprise, I think Mr. Redmond's going to be presenting for them this evening. Parks and Rec, Rick, I see you over there, great. Police, Chief Serino, and then Town Hall, we'll come back to you, Derek, for the grand finale. All right, great. So Derek, if you'd like to come up, do you need the board or anything?
No, we're
Just
having a little bit
going
of
to-
internet issues, so we're going to have to go old school with paper.
Great.
Thank you. Again, Derek Horn, the town administrator. Before we get into the budget overview, for those of you that haven't had a chance, I just want to walk through the town's budget binder. You'll see on the front, we've got it broken down into the different departments. One, you will see the summary of the entire budget as well as my written budget overview. And then 2 through 9, you'll see the different departments, as well as CIP at 8 and the sewer department at 9. And then we have our revenues at 10. For most of the binders, you will see in there, behind the actual budget reports, the presentations from the departments. Some of those are still forthcoming. You'll receive them as either tonight or at the next meeting. There'll be 3-hole punch. You can just kind of throw them in there. As we say every year, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact the department head directly and ask them for clarification. But to start off with the budget overview, again, I'm in tab 1, and you've got the budget summary there, as well as the budget overview. And the operating budget article that goes onto the warrant includes the general fund, the EMS special revenue fund, and the sewer enterprise fund. Because EMS special revenue is funded by users of ambulance services and sewer is funded by sewer users, we tend to focus most of this on the general fund because that's what impacts your property taxes. So last year, the total appropriation, including special articles, was just north of $25 million. This year, the 2023 proposed department head budget, including the special articles, is $25,360,700. That's an increase of $37,052 from last year. Just a note, that does not include any special articles by Crispin House or Main Street program, which we have seen in the past. Those, if they're going to be bringing forward requests to the select board, those will occur on November 9th or November 7th. And then just below that, you see a breakdown. You have a slight increase in the different departments. Our debt service continues to reduce year after year because of the way the fire station bond was set up. CIP has a decrease of about $700,000. Again, for those budget committee members that may recall from last year, there was a fire truck budgeted for $775,000 with reimbursement from the Capital Reserve Fund. So that's really the big item there. And then right now, there's only one item identified as a special article. That's a deposit into the Fire Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund. That has to be a special article by New Hampshire state law. And you see when you compare it against last year, the select board had multiple other special articles that were on the ballot. If you go to page 2, some of our budget assumptions for wages. The non-union department heads put in a 3% matrix adjustment for those non-union members, as well as step increases for those eligible employees that are not at the max. The library also has a 3% matrix adjustment. Just a reminder, they are trailing the town non-union by a year. So that's really, they kind of followed what we were, and step increases. And then you have your contractual CBA items. For Teamsters, there's no matrix adjustment, but a 2.5% step. Patrol has a 2% matrix adjustment, 2.2% step. Dispatch and clerks, 2% matrix adjustment and 2.5% step. And then fire, this was a contract that was approved earlier this year. They were placed on the matrix this year, so there is no matrix adjustment. And then the step increase varies for eligible employees between 1% and 4%, depending on where they are in the matrix. At page 3, we had favorable changes to our benefit account lines this year. Health trust for our health rates only went up 0.6%, and dental rates only went up 1.5%. So you may see a bigger change in the benefits line, which is the last page on behind admin, and that's because we're looking at a snapshot in time, what we have currently for employees right now and what they are taking for insurance. So you might have had somebody last year that was on a two-person plan that now is on a family plan, or you might have had somebody that retired and was replaced with a single. So it won't be a straight 0.6% change there. Property liability insurance, we assumed a 7% increase when we put this together, and that is the increase from New Hampshire Primex. That is our cap. Workers' comp, we assumed an 8% increase, and that was actually a decrease of 3%. That is not in the budget that's before you this evening. That change will be made at Select Board. We got those numbers this afternoon. And then unemployment, there was a change for that as well, about again a $1,000 change that's not shown in your budget here tonight, but that will, when it comes back to you from the Select Board, that change will be in there. Utilities and fuel, electricity, we're going into our final year of an energy supply deal, so there are some changes for distribution as well as department use. Heating oil, we've been working on heating oil and propane. We've been working with the school, so while we don't necessarily always have the same rate as them, we do partner with them when we go out to get rates, and you'll see those rates there. And then gasoline, we have a fixed number of gallons, and then when those gallons are up, we go to a rack rate or try and renegotiate during the year, as well as diesel. So revenues, the final page of the overview. So I think I'd really ask the Budget Committee to look at this, because last year in the budget, so when we look at the appropriation is very similar to how it was last year. However, we're working with a different set of revenues. Last year we had general fund revenues of about $7.4 million. This year, we're estimating the revenue offset to be 6.4. So that's a decrease of about $1 million in revenues. And so here are some of the highlights. The first one is, again, that fire truck that was part of the CIP budget last year had an offset from our capital reserve fund that we save up and we put away every year. So that revenue no longer appears. We also have a conservative budget estimate for meals and rooms distribution. I think we were very fortunate last year and very fortunate this year that the state budget had a change to the calculation and the share of any excess funds, but we don't know where that budget is going to land next year. So we didn't back it off into what we had budgeted last year. Last year we had $900,000 budgeted. But we did reduce it from about 1.3 down to $1 million. Again, to be conservative, it'd be better to surprise the taxpayers with additional funds coming in and lowering the tax rate rather than overshooting an estimate and having to back it out and ask the taxpayers for more property taxes come the fall. There's a reduction in the SAFER grant. This is the first SAFER grant that was approved in 2019. Those funds come out, but we do have the state's one-time contribution to 7.5% to Group 2 Police and Fire. So that really offsets that SAFER loss in this year. Also, the budgets or the revenues that we're showing does not include any use of fund balance at this time. That is a decision that's made by the select board if they want to pull anything out of the budget and propose it to be from fund balance. Last year, there was a proposal for select board articles as well as petition warrant articles to use $865,000 of fund balance, which was approved. So really, the difference right now is the department head budget as proposed, including the special articles and the net decrease of general fund revenue, as well as that use of unassigned fund balance, is $1,984,892. That would need to either be raised through property taxes, use of unassigned fund balance, or some other revenue that may come to our attention in the next couple months as we finalize the budget. That looks like a big number. Last year at this time, that difference was $2.1 million. So I don't want, that does have to, you do need to go through your scrutiny of where you are, but we're a little bit better than we were last year. And again, we try and be very conservative with our revenue estimates so that we don't get any surprises in the fall.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. So my first question is around the unassigned fund balance. What's the current fund balance, number one, and how much higher is it than the recommended DRA level?
So, can you give me the number of what was approved the other night? I don't have that. Not the percentage, the dollar amount. You just want, Joe, do you just want the percentage or the actual number?
The actual number. So
Okay.
I was under the impression that typically our unassigned fund balance was a little bit higher than what the recommended DRA
So
was.
the DRA recommends a range. They recommend a minimum of 5% of the general fund operating expenditures. And that's not just our general fund operating expenditures.
School district.
That is the general fund operating, it's basically our entire budget as the amounts collected for taxes for school, so both local and state, as well as the county portion, because we have to collect and turn those taxes over to those two entities, whether there is a loss of revenue somewhere else, so we have to do that. Last night, the select board met. They have been considering a change to their fund balance policy over the last few meetings. It has been the recommendation of the finance director and myself to increase that amount to 16.7%, which is the GFOA recommendation, 2 months of general fund expenditures.
What is GFOA? I'm sorry.
The Government Finance Officers Association. It's a national body that provides, works on the different recommendations for government. Okay, and they also do the national standards for fund accounting. So last night, the board voted to change their minimum amount to 12% and increase their target amount to 16%, while also using $750,000 of fund balance to set the tax rate this fall. So we're currently anticipating that we're going to be at 12.9%, so again, over that minimum, but below that target of 16%. And yeah, I want to say I think it's just over 7 million. It's just over 7 million. And fund balance is a snapshot in time of where we are. It includes capital assets. It also includes about $1.5 million in receivables. So it's not cash on hand that we always have.
Okay, and just follow up, if I could. Okay. So what is the DRA recommended level?
They recommend, they say a minimum of 5% and a maximum of 17%, and then they point to the GFO recommendation of 2 months of operating, so.
That seems like a very, very large percent range, right?
It
Like,
is, yep,
So we're shooting for the maximum range
yes,
instead of like necessarily in the middle?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify too, Derek and Danielle did some incredible due diligence of researching this for us and looking at trends in other communities because it is such a wide range. And we saw towns that hold $300,000 in their account and towns who hold,
20%.
four times 20% of what the lowest recommended amount is. So it really is something that we tried to do the math on, but even at that 2-month rate, we're still not close to our 16.7. So the goal was to increase the minimum based on those three and then slowly inch closer towards being able to hold 2 months. So we're not, I think we did the math last night. They're not verified numbers, but I think we'll be at 13% basically after.
Yeah, it was 12.9%.
After using $750,000 for tax relief for this upcoming tax setting. So you could, just that amount makes that percentage fluctuate so much. So it's a moving target certainly, but they were also pushing us to do even more than that, but we're trying to set realistic growth goals versus we're absolutely going to have this much, we're giving ourselves a range even within that, if that helps clarify a little bit.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have one more, maybe
Sure.
after Stacy.
I just want to clarify what your question
ahead.
again. So you said the DRE was 5% to 16%.
17%.
17%, and we're shooting for 12%, which actually isn't towards the hot.
Last night, the select board set a minimum of 12% and a target balance of 16%.
Okay, thank you.
And it also provides the select board flexibility to use it in case of emergencies or to reduce taxes. So I think they have the flexibility where they can still use it and propose use of it, but it's to assist with cash flow issues, because again, every month the school's coming and they need $3 to $4 million, and it's great that we have a wonderful relationship with the school. If they had an emergency and they need to ask for more, we have to pay out even if we haven't collected it, so.
Also, we haven't finalized the adjustments to our policy just yet. In our next select board meeting on Monday, we'll do that. So if we pass that as is or with any adjustments, Derek, maybe we can provide that to the board just to share with them all the changes in that policy for our.
And usually what I do on the summary after all the departments go is I do a fund balance overview of where we've been in the past and where we are now. So if the board adopts that final change next week, I'll definitely bring that to you next Tuesday.
Awesome, thank you.
You good?
I have one more.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So switching topics to the meals and rooms tax revenue distribution, that was an increase of like 10%, I believe.
We saw an increase.
25% to 35% or something like that.
So we went from about 900,000 up to just under 1.3.
Okay.
So it was about, in the first year, we've been advised by the New Hampshire Municipal Association that, again, these are unaudited numbers, that the state's receipts were a little bit less this year, so that we might see a slight decrease this year. We won't know those numbers until we meet with DRA this week to set the tax rate on what our final distribution will be.
So the 900 to the 13, or the 900,000 to 1.3 million, that's a $400,000 net, right?
Yep.
And you're evaluating that increase at less than 300,000 to be conservative?
We're bumping it back down. Again, that was a one-time change to how the excess meals and rooms, the state lowered the tax from 9% down to 8.5%. But if they collected more, they would share 45% of the overages with the town. As we have seen we've been very fortunate to see shared revenues from the state, whether it was the $292,000 in the last biennium. They're always shifting, so I guess it's kind of been our approach to be conservative in the first year when we're going in and we don't know what the state is going to provide us, so that we don't surprise the property tax owners or the property tax payers.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. My question is about the New Hampshire Health Trust. Does the town get different rates than the school? Because the school's predicting the 6.5% increase, but the GMR was expected in November. Do you guys get different rates?
Yes, we do, because we're part of different pools. We're part of the January 1st to December 31st pool.
Oh, because-
The school is July 1st to June 30th. So there's been years where we've had a 14% increase and the school had much lower. Their pool is a little bit bigger, but I guess the experience of our pool as well as the experience of our employees was favorable this time around.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions for Derek on the overview? Okay, great. Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Great, thank you. All right, Commissioner Redmond, you're up. And sewer is on tab 9. Oh, Lynn, would you like a non-rocking chair?
You want a real chair?
Are you sure? Okay. I asked.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Tim Redmond. I chair the Goffstown Sewer Commission. With me is Lynn Pooler. She is our executive secretary. She works in the town office building full-time. I'd like to thank everyone for having us in here this evening. I'd also like to thank all the department heads for granting us this early slot. I will be brief. I know it was stated by Derek, but I'd like to remind everyone that the Goffstown Sewer Commission operates an enterprise fund. We do not take any tax dollars, so everything that we collect from our users is what funds our budget. We also maintain our own enterprise fund, which is our savings accounts for emergencies. If we had a natural disaster or a pump station go out of business, we would need funding immediately, so we maintain an enterprise fund. So, before I start in with the admin section, last year, per the town meeting vote, we added an assistant superintendent position into our budget. That assistant superintendent position was approved and is presently a fully funded employee of the sewer department. As well, by an agreement with the Public Works Director, Adam Jacobs, our present sewer superintendent will become a fully funded sewer position. Public Works used to pay 10% of that position, but in the switching from losing Mike Walton and Mike Yurgo, the superintendent has taken on a lot of the role by himself. So where they used to split it, now there's quite a role for him. So the 10% that DPW used to pay will now be absorbed into the sewer budget. So both positions, matter of fact, all three positions will be fully funded by the sewer fund. There is one additional position at DPW, which we still pay 10% of, and that is for an employee who helps us with all our dig-safe requests and other things that go on that are necessary. So the first section of our budget is sewer administration. If you follow all the way down to the line that says 43,110, which is benefits, everything from that line up is derived from finance department. They provide us with those numbers based on all the requirements for salaries and benefits and retirement and all that business. So we actually begin with the next line. And what is the pleasure here tonight? Just to go over the lines that we increased only, or go over the whole budget line by line?
Do the select board members have any preference? I think, Mr. Redmond, how solidified do you think that this budget is?
The only thing we're not sure of is a few things that were coming in for some of the employment, workers' comp premiums, maybe, or unemployment premiums, some of the stuff that we don't know. But based on what we've been provided with from finance, we're very close to the actual budget that we're going to be looking at. Is that correct, Daniel? Thank you. So last year, I believe that I only went over the lines that changed from the prior year to try to be brief. So if that's okay with everyone here, I'll just stick to that, and there's very few lines.
Does anyone have any objections to just going through the increases or the changes?
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first one is 44,300 employee development. We budgeted last year $500. That was for 2 employees. Now that we have a 3rd employee, we increased it by $250, so we increased that to $750. That's $250 per employee for employee development. Keep moving down through that department line, we come to computers and communications. These are our IT licenses and different things that are provided to us through the IT and the finance department. So those numbers, once again, are numbers provided to us from an outside source. And that actually finishes all the changes to the sewer administration portion of our budget. Any questions? I love it. Okay, the next part of our operations is sewer operations. Once again, all the way down to 42700 workers' compensation premiums. All those are provided by finance, that line and above. The next one down is for clothing and uniforms. We increased that slightly. Actually, we doubled it because we were only providing uniforms for a single employee. Now we're providing uniforms for 2 employees.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
what was the numbers you were using? The numbers of the line?
I'm using the number, it's, there's like an 8-digit number, and then there's a short one just before the word clothing and uniforms. 44150.
Okay, it's different in here.
No, he's on the second section.
Oh, okay, I see it, all right. Yeah,
On the, sewer operations section of our, it's the lower half of the page.
okay, you're not using them. Okay.
You all set, Mr. Fletcher? You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We okay?
I do, if we could just back up just for one moment, could you please just address the sewer operations, the full-time wages? I know you talked about more responsibility, but specifically that increase in that line, is that just for that one employee?
We have, I'm going to let Danielle answer this question because what happened was originally the wages for the new position were budgeted in the admin section of our budget. For the 22 season, we did not know the position would be approved, so the actuals are showing up in the operations side of the budget.
Okay, and that's where that reduction in the administration line is coming from? Got it, thank you.
I knew Danielle could explain it better than me.
She just nodded along with you, you did great. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim and Lynn. My question is, so just because you said clothing and uniforms, I just want to ask, one employee takes $800 worth to pay for uniforms for one employee? And now that there's 2, it's $800 more dollars? I just want you to elaborate a little bit.
We budget through the DPW contract, and this is what they have, they put everything out to bid. I don't know if it's annually or what it is, but it is out to bid. So we tag along with their contract, so we are working off of the DPW contract. But it also includes winter wear, their work boots. There's a whole bunch of different items. It's not just shirts and pants. There are a list of items which I don't have with me, but they're all included in that one line.
Thank you. I just find it interesting, $800. I feel like I could go to a store and save you a bunch of money if you want.
Some of it is every month we get a charge, $40 per employee or $20 per employee to wash the uniforms, and they have, sewing clothes and that kind of work. Some of that, and then the additional would be for the allowance for boots.
There's also winter wear. We also provide them with winter coats and different items for them to work outside in the cold.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. So then I'm going to go to continue in the operations. We have contracted services. We budgeted $35,000 last year. We raised that to $38,500 this year. In our contract services line is our cleaning of the sewer lines in the town. We clean approximately 1/3 of the sewer lines in town every year, and we use a vendor now. We used to work with the Public Works Department with their machine, their VACON. I won't speak to the increased costs of buying a new VACON, but we felt it would be better for us to work with Adam and just vendor this out and try to extend the life of his machine, which he is also trying to do, I believe. So at this time, we have a vendor that does it for us, and we expected a $2,500 increase in fuel costs, which is going to be reflected in our charges for services rendered.
So, excuse me, Commissioner Redmond, so is the VACON still being used in conjunction with these contracted out services?
No,
or this is
we have an
just
agreement
strictly-
with Public Works to pay for emergency use only in the middle of the night. Should we have a clogged line and we need to get something unclogged in a short time, we have an agreement with Public Works where we reimburse them for use of the machine and manpower to go out and clear the line with the town's machine.
Yeah.
But due to the extended use of 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of daily use of the machine out on the streets, the life of the machine has a lifespan, and we're just trying to work with them to try to extend the lifespan of the town's truck.
No, that makes sense, thank you. I was just clarifying that the contracted services wasn't to DPW. So
And we do use a contractor who is a state bid contractor, so he is the lowest bid available, and we use a state bid for that contract.
Thank you. Lauren, did you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm sorry, just a clarification, what page did we go to? Because I think my binder's a little goofy. Is there a 26 of 26?
I'm on
Your-
26 according to mine.
My binder is missing pages. I'm very sorry to interrupt your presentation, but I got a little lost where I was like, what? Second page?
You should have seen me last year. I was working off the wrong sheet. Talk about being
You
lost.
did, I remember now, he's right.
You did admirably.
And then it goes to 22
Adlib
back
was the
on.
word.
It's all right, I won't take it personally.
Thank you.
So this needs to go over here.
It's a machine that creates a suction, and it either vacuums the lines out or it takes water and
I
it
need to ask
gets
those
water into them, and it
questions.
pushes a clog down the line to the
Thank you,
next
Jane.
manhole.
Sweet, thanks.
It's not that sweet, actually.
These are the
things that I'm curious about.
It kind of tags along with Joe's
You
uniform.
can tag along and see how it goes.
I think it looks,
Like
I will, I would love to.
Needs to know.
You have to have a hard hat and a vest on. Okay, we're on to diesel fuel. This is for the diesel fuel for the superintendent's pickup truck. We budgeted 15 last year. We changed that to 2,500 because diesel fuel has doubled or so in the last year, so we are projecting our diesel fuel expense will be greater. Gasoline was zero. The assistant superintendent, we bought a vehicle for the assistant superintendent to use for his job. It is a gasoline-powered vehicle, so that money that's budgeted for '23 is for the new truck that we purchased. CIP projects is a kind of a, generally it's a placeholder, as everybody knows about CIP. We have a budgeted amount this year of $507,000 for Albert Street. We're going to replace the sewer lines on Albert Street in Bernardville. It has not gone out to bid yet, so we're not exactly certain what our costs will be, but we would be happy to stick with that number as a hard number, and if it goes over that, we will use funds from the enterprise fund to cover any overage for that if we have to. And then the last thing, oh, I'm sorry. Apologize.
Actually, could I back up one line
Sure.
to, thank you, Commissioner. Could I back up to equipment maintenance?
Yes?
And I think we may have talked about this last year, but I noticed that the actuals are much lower than the amount that is budgeted
Right.
consistently through. Can you explain why it's consistently $10,000? Even though we don't meet that with the actuals?
Equipment maintenance is something where you never know when something's going to break. You have to save something for equipment maintenance. And if you don't budget something, then you have to go to another line to cover it from another line. So we generally budget enough based on past emergencies or past use. And, I mean, you never know if a transmission goes in a truck, $10,000 isn't going to last very long. Or if the engine blows up, it's not going to last long. We all know that. So we leave it at that number, and we have carried it on this year so that we have an amount in there to cover something should it happen. We're not wishing it happens, but if we end up only using $2,500 or $2,639 as it states right now, we'd be happy to put the rest of it back into our sewer enterprise fund and park it there until we have another budget, and maybe we can bring it forward to pay for one of our projects that we have to do.
Thank you so much for clarifying it.
Thank you. And I started to finish, if I'm finishing up on CIP, we know it's a placeholder. So as I stated, Albert Street is this year's project. We'll see when it goes out to bid, and we'll find out what the cost is on that when we get our numbers from our contractor. The last thing on that line is Manchester O&M charges. That's our maintenance charges. All of our wastewater goes to the East Union building, and it is then pumped via the interceptor line, which is a 3-foot diameter pipe that runs all the way to Manchester. It runs actually under the rail trail. So that sewage water goes to the City of Manchester's wastewater plant. We are do you know what the percentage is, by any chance? I think we're something like a 6 or 7% investor in the wastewater plant in Manchester. So first of all, we have to pay for all of our wastewater. That goes through a meter, and they tell us how many gallons annually we send to them. Secondly, we are responsible for a percentage of all of their major improvements to the wastewater plant in Manchester. So we have, when they do an upgrade, we have to pay our fair share for the maintenance on that. So we have ideas about what they're going to do, but we don't always know exactly what they're going to do, and we don't know exactly what our charges are going to be. So we budgeted what we budget. The number that shows for the year for the year to date, they bill us a big whopper bill at the end of the year every year. And it will, as you can see, last year we ended up with $613 on a $650 budget. We budgeted $600 again. It's a little bit less, and that was based on the fact that we budgeted $650 last year and only used $613. So we lowered that to $600 this year. We don't really know where it's going to be, but it tried to be good stewards and bring it down a little bit.
We actually increased.
We increased it from 22, but we reduced it from 21. We're trying to find that happy ground. So any more questions on the two areas I've covered so far? Excuse me, the last area is sewer pump stations. We left everything alone except for our propane charges. Propane went up dramatically, so we increased our 22 amount from 2,000 to our 23 request of 3,000. Other than that, that entire line, budget page is left alone. We did not increase anything on that page.
Thank you,
In an
Commissioner.
effort to be brief,
Questions?
I'm done.
Lauren?
Thank you. Line 532030 for diesel fuel for your pump stations. You didn't think, just curious, you're not increasing that, the same percentage that you did? on
That's a
the-
different use. That is for the diesel generator that operates the pump station should the pump station not have electricity. And we keep that money in there because if the diesel pump does go on, it's going to drain the tank in about 3 days, and we need money to refill the tank again. So we always carry that amount of money in there to have the tank refilled should the generator need to fire and run the pump station.
Thank you.
Chairman Redmond, question on, we're a 6 to 7% investor in Manchester. Can you review the benefit to Goffstown for that?
I said 6.7. Did you say the same thing?
Oh, 6.7, okay.
I believe we're at 6.7, but I can get the number for you for an upcoming budget meeting. I'll check with Manchester. We'll get the exact number.
Okay, it wasn't so much the number, it was, we're a 6.7% investor. What do we get for that?
We get treatment of all our wastewater. We can send raw sewerage wastewater via that pipe to them, and they process it. They meet the DES standards for discharge into the river for cleaning the water to the point where it's clear enough to return it to the river.
Okay, so when you say 6 to 7% investor, is that similar to a 6 to 7% owner of a business?
Because we have a percentage, I think they believe that we send 6.7% or whatever the actual number is. That's our percentage of the total wastewater that runs through that plant.
Gotcha, okay.
And it's not a moving number. It doesn't change year by year. That's where we've been locked in at that same number since we joined them, along with Bedford and Hooksett. and I think parts of Auburn are actually go to the wastewater plant in Manchester. So those were the assigned shares that we were given when we joined in with them, and we've had that ever since. We can't negotiate that, because what are we going to do with our wastewater if they say that we're not going to give you a better deal?
Right.
So we'd have to build our own treatment plant, and that would be impossible. Really, it would be impossible under the new standards.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for coming. My question is on the sewer pump station's equipment repairs, the 53440. I noticed, I guess that line's similar to the equipment maintenance line. It's always at 100,000, but your actuals are coming in a lot lower.
That is for, we have 9 pumps at the station, so that's the pumps that are about 15,000 each, and 4 we're doing with.
Our total inventory of sewerage pumps that work, we have 4 pump stations, I believe 4 pump stations in town, and all those pump stations have pumps in them that send wastewater to the main line. Those pumps are $15,000 a piece. Should any one or all of the pumps happen to fail simultaneously, 15,000 times 9 is over $100,000.
Okay.
So we need to keep a robust balance in there for emergencies, any type of an emergency, because it also includes, if the pump station is shut down, we have to have a vendor come in and pump all the water out of the pump station and take it to another wastewater plant or Manchester and dump it, so there's a charge for that. Like, it's the guy that does your septic tank. Everyone gets their tanks pumped around here. So we have to get rid of that wastewater because it continues to come in from all the collection system. It doesn't just stop. We have to do something with it if the pumps were to fail. So that's always been a bone of contention, that number in our budget, but we need to maintain that number in the event that we had an emergency. And unlike any other entity, if we don't spend the money in our budget, we don't have any other things to spend it on. We don't go out and buy pickup trucks or anything like that with it. It all goes back to the enterprise fund, and it gets parked there until we do a new budget, or if we need to use it for infrastructure or new projects. Because we can't fund all of our infrastructure repair out of the sewer use charges. We have to go to the enterprise fund to pay for replacing of sewer lines and upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just the users paying that, it's also the enterprise fund pays for that, and that's kind of our big savings account.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And Rick, you are on, well, up next, I guess. Chief Serino, you're on deck. Parks and Rec is at tab 6.
Well, we gotta go Plan B here. Plan B. We don't have video, so we're gonna go, if you would be kind enough, that tab 6, go right to the, my little PowerPoint and paper version, all black and white, you can't see the pictures. I had some great pictures that show beautiful things.
Look how fancy.
But you just gotta let your mind go, okay? Let your mind just go, all right? We're saving money.
Rick, tell them how to get there so they can take a drive one day.
There you go, there you go. I guess what I'd like, Rick will help me, Parks and Recreation Director. What I'd like to do is kind of start out and just kind of give you an overview of what the department basically consists of. I didn't really do that last year. I just went right in and said, here's the numbers. So I think it's important to really kind of show you all what we're doing and what is out there. So if you flip to the second page, I like to start out with, we own and operate 3 sports field complexes. Okay, that's the sports complex, the new one that's built behind the transfer station. We have the Surrett complex, which is over in Pinardville. That's basically 3 rectangular fields. There's a baseball field, Louis Street baseball field is over there. Barnard football field, All right, so these fields have been around and are well-used by a lot of our youths in our youth in our community and the different organizations. You flip to the next page. We have, as you all know, we have two parks. We have two parks in our community. We have Roy Park, which is over in the Pinardville section of town, Goffstown, but I gotta say Pinardville. And then we have Barnard Park, which is, I guess, in Goffstown. This end of town, this side of the bridge. Anyhow, both of these parks, when you look at it, they were all established in the early 80s. And those structures and facilities that are there are still there, you know, and we've done some big changes here and there, but there's definitely a lot of other aspects of facilities that are in need of some repair. And I think that's part of my mantra going through this presentation this evening. We have a lot of wonderful things. We have a lot of wonderful things that are aging. And it's time that we take heed to this and pay attention to it, and we have to plan for it. It's just no getting around it. But, you know, at Roy Park, we redid the playground over there. It's a beautiful playground, gets a lot of use over there. We redid the 2 basketball courts at both parks. The track, as you know, was redone at Barnard. That was, I think, 2012, so that was quite a long time ago, too. I mean, you might think that, hey, that wasn't that long ago. You got to start thinking about stuff like that. The tennis courts, we just redid that. And then, of course, you got the rail trail, 5.2 miles of the rail trail. That's the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. My hat's off to that group, because I tell you, they are wonderful groups of people. They forge forward and they just keep on ticking. I love it. As far as the building goes, we have the recreation building. That recreation building is, the original portion of that building was built in the 70s. I'm told it was the Blue Goose or whatever building it was, some recreational hall back in the 70s. That hasn't changed. The only thing in 1980 is you added on the front part a 30 by 30 gym area, let's call it, and so in 1998 that was added in. That's used for a lot of, you know, public meetings. We use it for different youth classes. We use it for a lot of senior classes, our bone builders, things like that, some yoga. How do you like that picture there? Look at the people lying on the floor. I got a kick out of that one. I'm sorry. They were doing yoga. They weren't sleeping. Anyhow, and then of course, we got the famous ice rink, right? When's the ice rink open? The question should be coming about the end of November. When is the ice rink open? Anyhow. Next page. Whoa, this one's a little black, a little dark. So other parks that we manage the Glen Lake waterfront. We kind of co-manage the Town Common. The Town Common's an interesting little beast. It's kind of between Parks and Rec, DPW. There's a lot of hands in the cookie jar over there, but it all gets done and it works out. But even the Town Common, there's a lot of future work. If you go through that, there's some need. There's a lot of need. I think, Derek, when was that redone? In 2004? 2004? 2004, I think, is when that was all renovated to its current status. Glen Lake Waterfront, that was renovated in 2002, somewhere around there, Collis?
Correct.
You know, so I mean, listen to these ages, okay? We're 20-plus years in a lot of different areas that we are in, and it's time that we have to start looking at that. The picture on the left-hand side of that right there is Glen Lake Waterfront. That's an unbelievable washout right there. So we have a plan down the road for all that, but we have to start thinking about that. The next slide, page. The Parks and Recreation Department, we are the school's grounds crew. We are the grounds crew. So when you look at everything that is there, as far as the high school, we're mowing everything. We take care of their 2 soccer fields out back, the varsity field, the JV field, the softball, 2 softball fields. We mow this entire complex. We prep every single athletic event. So you have football, soccer, field hockey in the fall, and then you have lacrosse, softball, and baseball in the spring. That alone right there is a lot of man hours and machinery. Maple Avenue, we mow the outdoor property over there, there's not much there. Glen Lake Kindergarten, outdoor property, that's huge. There's a lot of land around that, a lot of weed whacking. Anybody want to do weed whacking, give me a call, I'll hook you right up. I'll gladly give you a weed whacker. It's great exercise, just put the earphones on and just go. Wear some shin guards, you're all set. Bartlett, there's a little bit over there, that's a weed whacker job and you're done, but anyhow. Mountain View Middle School, that's another huge complex, all right? Over there, you got a soccer field, field hockey field that has to be mowed. You got a baseball field, you got a softball field. You have field space out behind the softball field. You have the entire complex, all the grass that has to be prepped over there. They also have athletic events. So they also have soccer, field hockey in the fall, and lacrosse, and softball, and baseball in the spring. So we're prepping every single one of those. We're also mowing Lions Field, okay? It's all part of the school. The school has an MOU. Did I say that right? MOU, I think, memorandum of understanding. With Lions, so we mow all that complex over there. Just want to give you a big picture. When we're asking for a new $18,000 mower, hello, okay? All right. As far as programs go, Parks and Rec, I just made a list. You can read through these as you wish. We offer a lot of programming as well. Gave you a little flow chart as far as staffing, what our staffing structure looks like. All right, so we have myself, the director. We have a full-time grounds supervisor. We have a full-time program supervisor. And then in 2020, you all allowed us to get a full-time ground/program assistant who is wonderful, helping us out greatly. That's a full-time position. We have a lot of contract service employees, referees of different types, that kind of stuff. That's what I call contract service employees. Part-time, seasonal kids, full-time, hourly, 40 hours a week. We got 9 playground staff. We got 10 lifeguards, 12 lifeguards. And we have 1 seasonal laborer also to help us 16 weeks out of the course of the season. That's the big picture, all right? That's everything that we do. You all have any questions about that? I know you just want numbers, but do you have questions about all that? Okay, very good. I'm going to skip over that page where it shows all the numbers for a minute. I'm going to jump right to CIP, okay? So our only 2023 CIP request this year is an $82,000 F-350 dump body. Our current, it's just a the truck we currently have is a 2012, same truck. When we bought that in 2012, we had it's basically a metal dump body. Never ever buy one of those again. It just doesn't last. So this one here will have an aluminum dump body, and I'm sure as you all know, it's a scary thing out there right now with vehicles. I mean, I budgeted $70,000, and I called to get a true number of what this is going to be. $82,000. It's out of control. But anyhow, that's our only CIP request, okay? What I'd like to do to go through all the numbers is I'd like to utilize this budget highlight page and work off of that. What we did here is we basically, we hit all the lines that are increasing. And in all honesty, I hate to say it, but in this budget, I think every single line has increased. it's disgusting. There's nothing you can do. It's everywhere you look. We used to buy a bag of seed for $100, $198. So it's astronomical, the things that we're seeing. Let's start with regular full-time wages. If I'm going too fast, anybody has anything to say, whoa, slow down. Full-time wages, that's an increase. We remember last year we were allowed to bring on a full-time employee. That was basically without 3 months of their employment, because it was approved in March. We don't start them until April, so you have a 3-month time period that wasn't represented in the 2022. Plus, it also has the market increases that are already budgeted into that. If you have any questions on that, I will refer to Danielle right away. Thanks, Danielle. The regular part-time wage line, that increase right there is between the 21, 22 seasonal employees that we bring back, okay? So that's our lifeguards, grounds that come back. We were just in, Aaron and I were just in a statewide recreation meeting, directors meeting, about a week, 3 weeks ago. And what the salaries for these part-time employees, they're all going up, and you have to stay competitive with that market. So this increase is a good chunk of that. I will say that we have requested, and this is just a proposal, we do have one added 16-week summer grounds position, which is about $9,200 of that 17. So if you want to keep that in your hat, go right ahead, keep that right in your hat. So that is one of the add-ons to that, but everything else in that line, truthfully, is staying in the market of what the surrounding communities are paying for these type of jobs. Overtime pay, that just is relevant to the total numbers. Employee development, that's an increase right there. We have to now pay for CPR first aid training for our summer staff. Years ago, we used to use the fire department, and I guess we could reach back out to the fire department if you have those people that are able to do that. I don't know. But I'm planning for Plan A, going to get them privately trained. So that's the increase. The other part of that, too, is we pay part of attracting lifeguards. What we found is that we will pay an average lifeguard course is $400 for them to be certified for 2 years. So we offer up a reimbursement for 2 people for that. Contract services, that's an increase. As I said, contract services is all our referees, lacrosse, basketball, that kind of stuff. And every one of those contract service people, their wages are all going up. The hourly rate for officials is going up. Heating oil, as you heard Tim, I think that's a mantra. We're not really changing the average gallons, it's the cost per gallon that's gone up. Electricity for us, I found a 40% increase. Barnard Swimming Pool, the month of August, okay? A year ago was $9.73. This year, $13.73. Hello. Welcome to August when that rate went up. Anyhow. Gasoline, just a slight little increase there. Diesel, we're finding that we're using a little more gallons, a few more gallons, so just a little, we don't use a lot of diesel. Fleet maintenance, that's just product cost. Here's a big one. So if you look at equipment maintenance supply, this is the line that we use to purchase new machinery. So that $18,000 is a new mower, all right? You heard me talk about all those fields and everything else that we were doing over in the other part of my presentation, all right? We currently have 2 mowers, we have 3 mowers. There is, the mower that has the least amount of hours on it is 3,000 hours. All right, that's a lot. It's a lot of hours on a mower, on a commercial mower. So we're proposing to get a new one for this year, for 2023.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a
Can you
question?
just finish the last two, if that's
Yeah.
okay? If you could just finish the last two, Rick, and then we'll open it up to questions. for
I'm
everyone.
sorry, I'm getting winded.
No, you're good.
Park operation, that's a big increase. A lot of that is, as I said, with fertilizer, seed, different chemical costs. As silly as it sounds, buying a case of toilet paper, for crying out loud, used to be $39. It's now $73 for a case of paper, and that's going through a state WB Mason, that's analyzing and looking, what are your options? HD Supply, Home Depot, HD Supply, WB Mason, who's got the better deal? It ain't cheap. And then pool operation, that's chemicals, chlorine, different things like that. Programmatically, $5,000. That, actually, 1,000 of that is we'd like to bring back, talking with Jackie Pelletier over at the PD, we'd like to bring back the movie in the park. Remember when we had movie in the park? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. The mosquitoes ate you alive. It was great. Good movie, good social event. So 1,000 of that is for programming. Oh, good.
All right, so on the last page, it just has the grand total, 17% increase. You can see that total number on the last page. So does anyone have questions for Rick on totals? Stacy, you have?
Yep. Are we seeing any impact with the turf field? So whether it's an increase or a decrease, is there like anything that's helping you? Like, is that going to take away from mowing? Are we going to have to get a new machine to help take care of that turf field? Like, what is the impact to you with that field?
That's a great question. We're all learning. I think as far as that's one field that you're not going to have to mow on a regular basis. So yes, does that help you? Yes, it does. You're still going to have to probably line it, but you only have to line it maybe in a fall season, you might only have to line it 2 times because it'll stay longer. So yes, it's going to save you time. Where I see that helping is in the greater usage for all our youth, everybody in this community. That's where that's going to be a diamond in the rough, because that's going to allow, if it's allowed. I don't have authority on any of this, so I probably shouldn't speak this way. But what that'll do is that'll allow youth programs to play all their games on that field. So now, maybe we don't have to have a grass field that we keep precious and only use it for games so that they have a good field. So now maybe that allows us to open more practice, because we're still hurting in that area of practice. So yes, that's how I see it really helping. I think it'll help in maintenance. You still have to maintain that. You still have to drag it, and they're going to be buying an attachment that'll go on to a tractor. So there's some man hours. You know, you're going to have to drag it. You have to chicken feed every now and then the beads, the black beads. Just like around soccer, you have the goal crease, all right? Same thing in a grass field. It all wears, right? Same thing with the beads. The beads get pushed out and they keep moving out. So what do you have to do? You have to come in and chicken feed the beads. So you have to fill the holes back in. So there is some maintenance. It's not maintenance free. And that would be all on the school budget.
Oh, that was my follow-up question. So that equipment piece is going to be on the school board and not going to come out of your budget now or in the future? That equipment piece?
I'm kind of hoping that.
Does anybody know that?
Did you all hear that?
Because that wasn't part of the school board presentation, so does anyone know where that equipment's coming from?
I think what's happening in the initial stages of it, it's all part of the beginning investment. So I think that is in the initial investment.
Okay.
It comes with those attachments.
Okay.
So it's not, that's why you probably didn't hear it in a presentation. And it's gonna be new. That's gonna be a whole new concept, so I think everybody's in a learning curve on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick, so I'm looking at this budget and I'm saying, great, except one thing.
Sure,
I got questions on the truck,
sure,
the F-350.
yes.
And you talked about the body.
The dump
You're
body.
talking about
The dump body.
Dump body, right?
Yeah,
And it's steel,
yeah.
and it rots out. And you're right, they aren't worth a damn. Tell me about the truck. How many miles on the truck?
If you want to put a new dump body, a $20,000 dump body on a 12-year-old truck that has, the miles are irrelevant. The
Okay.
miles are maybe 40,000 miles.
Okay.
That's fine if you want to do that, but
No, I didn't say I wanted to do it.
I didn't know where you're going.
Rick, do you think you
What
could
about
just...
the frame?
It's getting rotted, it's rotted.
Okay.
Can you get maybe another 2 years out of that frame? I'm not a magical guy, but maybe you
You know,
can.
it's just hard to, it's only 10 years old. It's a dump truck. It sits around a lot of the weekend. It's not used all the time, but 8 hours a day. Go from here to there.
Well, it's an 8-hour day, but the
There's a lot
actual
of wear
time.
and tear on starting it, driving over here, stopping it.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes short distances. But the body rots out because it sits outdoors in the rain.
Rick, I was going to ask if you could just talk about the use for that truck. Is that the truck that you do the park trash cleanup with?
Oh, I wish I had a picture.
No, I know what you
You
do
ought to
with
see
it.
the boatload of trash.
I know what you do with it.
We have the back of that truck full, chucker block full of bags of trash. Yes, it's used for trash, it's used for loam, it's used for everything under the sun that we need to haul stuff around on. So,
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah.
I'm just trying to get in my mind that it's time to replace the whole thing. I guess I can only say with the way things are today, you know, $82,000 for a truck is a lot of money, but we need it.
Yes, we do.
Okay. But is it possible with the way taxes are, and they probably go up, and all the people that are gonna pay for that, you know, maybe the thing to put a body on it for a couple of years, get a little more out of it. I don't know. I haven't looked
Dick,
at it.
You know what? I don't know either, all right? But if you want
Have
me to
you-
respond, and I'm gonna respond this way. Lipstick on a pig is one thing, okay? If you sit here and you plan and you get the right thing, it gives you another 10 years, okay? Or, yes, you can Band-Aid it, and then I don't know what's gonna happen to the truck, and it's out of service. Then I got folks hollering at me because I can't get vehicles around and all that stuff. I got a different philosophy, but whatever you all want to do.
Well, you get
So
the
we don't
problem,
know
I
is the
don't.
answer.
But have we taken it to our engineers? I mean, the mechanics and
Yeah.
have them
Yes.
appraise it and say what the problem is? And
We got Melanie and then Samantha. But just real quick, Rick, was this a state bid price? Is this a state bid
Yes.
option
Yes.
vehicle? Okay, great, thank you. And do we happen to know if there's any resale value on the truck at all? Would it go to bid? Would it be
Oh, I'm sure you're
repurposed
gonna
in
get
town?
something.
Is
Sure
that
you-
the plan, though, to sell it, or would it be repurposed for something
Well,
else?
like Dick's got me thinking here now, you know?
Great.
Maybe you take the bed off of the back of that thing and you make it into a flat body, a rack body. Oh, you got me thinking now.
well, you can put a body on it.
So we're gonna
I'm
think
not
on
gonna
this
put,
one.
I'm not gonna put a
Yeah.
$20,000
You could go out and buy an aluminum body or.
I'm not gonna
steel.
put a $20,000 body on that. I could build a little wooden rack body for it, sure.
All right, Melanie, you have a next question?
I had just a quick question. Thank you for your colorful description. It's very appreciated. My question was, given the wait times that we have for vehicles, do you have any idea
Oh, yeah.
of when it would be available, should you go ahead with the
You
purchase?
ready for this one? You ready?
I'm guessing 3 years.
No, let's sit down and relax on this one. Here we go.
Okay.
So the word I got, all right, you have, I spoke with Raponi Ford, November 7th to November 10th of 2022. You put your order in. You don't put an order in, you don't get a truck in 2023.
Maybe.
That's true. That's true.
Huh? How do you like that one?
So it's a good thing we may have 2 more years on that existing truck?
Or you
Another
put
option.
the order in, and if it makes it through, you're not, I don't think, you're not obligated to that order. So you put your order in, I'm kind of being sarcastic, I get that way, I'm sorry.
You know.
What it is, I think it's Raponi's way of getting inventory. So they're gonna say, all right, yeah, Goffstown, Hooks it, whatever, all right, they all want a truck. So put it in, they're gonna order it.
Rick, my understanding.
If our budget passes, then we get it. If our budget doesn't pass, we don't get it. I'm sure they're gonna find us.
But my understanding of that was that the window is so short to take orders because the manufacturers are then gonna close down.
Yeah.
They will not be selling anymore
Right.
outside of that purchasing window, which is very short. This is not an issue that's unique to this specific vehicle. This is going on in all areas of vehicles. We're having an incredible hard time with the fluctuation in steel prices, so on and so forth. So I'm happy you're gonna think about this a little bit more, but I would love some clarification on the plans for the truck. But we're keeping this on here for now, is what I'm hearing you say.
Oh, yeah.
Think about other options.
I'm not changing my mind.
Okay.
$82,000 for a new truck. I haven't changed
Great.
my mind.
Samantha, you're up.
Thank you. Did Melanie?
Nope,
have-
you're good.
Okay. So the $18,000 mower is under equipment, maintenance, and supplies, as opposed to equipment. Is that because it's parts that
Spend it-
we're putting
it's-
onto another mower?
It's, these type of purchases have always been in that line for my 13 years being here, so I never changed it.
Okay, so it's
Why
not,
reinvent the wheel? Keep it right there. That's all, that's how it flows.
yeah, I guess just for like my own clarification, it's not that we're putting like blades on an existing mower?
No,
Okay,
that's equipment maintenance.
Rick, was that mower in CIP?
but not supplies.
It's,
Not equipment maintenance supplies.
hey, I don't
Yeah, but we have a
change
special
nothing.
clause for mowers. I just can't
If it ain't
remember what it
broken,
is
don't
off the top
fix
of
it.
my head. Rick, what's the special clause for mowers in CIP?
I don't honestly know. I always was told it's a $20,000 threshold, but then there was always, and this was
Sorry,
this is a good
They're trying to
debate.
tell you, I think.
So the threshold in CIP is $25,000. The only time we've had exception is when it's rolled stock, and we've taken that to mean something that needs to be registered, to be driven, or trailered on the road.
So we never made changes to the mowers themselves for the
Correct.
CIP
We've always
mowers.
done
Okay,
mowers out of operating budget.
perfect. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. My question is just around the referee contracted services. We're only using like up to half of it as of year to date. I understand there's a fall season, but even if you look at the 2021 actuals, we've only used a third of what the contract
You're
is.
still-
So my question is, can you justify the increase, that increase when we're not even using the full line to begin with?
Yes, good question. To go back to if you go back, we were still dealing a little bit with COVID back in 2021, so we didn't have all our programming, so we had a little less there. We could probably take $800 out of that line at this moment for 2023. If you want to make your first cut, go right ahead.
Well, I can't make a
Well,
comment
we're not
now,
making-
but maybe
Yeah.
later.
Well, that'll be your go-to.
Well, we will all take note of that.
That'll be your go-to.
First on my list.
But no, I mean, it's all but the 800. I would say yes.
Thank you.
I feel very confident that we're going to be using that. And also, too, it also will vary. For instance, okay, so in lacrosse, the lacrosse season, if we have a full onslaught of teams, we're going to use every bit of that money. Same thing with all our basketball programs. If we're going to have full schedules with teams, we're gonna use all those monies. It may be that we might be down 2 teams or whatever, so now that's less games, that type of thing. So that variable will play in there, not to be 100% drawn, if that makes sense. And you don't know what you're gonna have, so you gotta plan for, if that makes sense.
Rick, I have, I'm sorry, Joe, are you all set? Okay, thank you. I have 2 questions for you. The first is, what instances are we using overtime pay right now?
Overtime pay, we end up using that. A lot of that is, we have all our staff people help out with the Goffstown Gallop. We have any social event that we have, we will actually use some of our, not all of them, but some of our, like National Night Out, we'll use some of our staff to help us with that. Remember, we're only a 2-person crew.
I was just asking for instances. The second, you mentioned town CPR training.
Yes.
So just to ask that you connect with the chief to see if
Yes.
maybe there are some options where,
Yep.
even if it's not a lower cost, but maybe a larger group, we could coordinate something
Sure.
in town where we need that to do something.
We went through CMC this last summer. I can't remember, Aaron got it. It was from CMC Hospital.
Great, yeah. Evelyn, go.
Rick, do you have any future plans to try to install HVAC in the...
Yes, we do. That's in CIP down the road. There's a lot of stuff in CIP, Evelyn, that I didn't bring up because I'm talking 2023, and I'm sure if I bring it up, it'll be a long conversation, so let's just stick with 2023.
I'm going to remind you that you said that. All right, any other, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Roach.
Rick, just for your information, that building was an American Legion post-19 building, built there in the 50s.
The 50s? Oh, my head.
That's the historian.
I thought it was the 70s.
Anyone else have questions for
Well,
Rick
it's the
on
same building, I'll tell you.
the 2023?
It might have been 60s.
It has the same mice and squirrels in it.
Huh?
Same mice and squirrels, same ones.
Carpet.
Any other questions for Rick? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
And Chief Serino, you're up. Derek, you're back on deck. We're not voting on it.
What's he gonna tell me?
Police is on tab 3.
I tried to.
Thank you.
Look at this color, yeah.
Take note of this in-house.
There's absolutely no pictures of that, so I'm gonna have a hard time.
At the end, though, there's a couple of community policing pictures. Actually, now that you said that, maybe I'll bring some, next time I come to you guys, I'll bring some actual devices so everybody can see everything.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I feel like there should also be a dog here, just saying. Would probably
I didn't see her last time.
be a little more favorable.
Yeah, she's not working tonight. I love her. Oh, I feel like I'm on that one every time. Okay, so, thank you all for having me. I'm Chief Eric Serino. So, first and foremost, you see me with a beard. I particularly don't like wearing beards in my uniform, but we are raising money for the Child Advocacy Center, which in Hillsborough County is the people who forensically interview children that are sexually abused and physically abused. So what we do is we grow beards throughout the state. People donate to our page, and that funding, those donations goes directly to our state, our county, and this particular organization, Hillsborough County. So the money that we raise at Goffstown Police goes straight to our resources that help our children in our community.
So that's what my beer is about, and I'll give an honorable mention to Lieutenant Tom Hammond, who I think is leading the state right now with $6,000 in donations. And I might let him keep it after. So.
Well done.
But he's going to win a prize at the end, I'm not sure. But, I just wanted to kind of address that, if anybody has questions. But real quick, as I bring you through my budget presentation, there's a few things that I need to kind of just explain right off the bat. The second page, what you're seeing, or the part that says the overview, there is an error in that number that I need, not the proposed number, the operating budget number. The number that you need to have in there for your presentation is $4,321,987. So it went down from what you're probably seeing.
Can you say that number again?
$4,321,987. And I'll explain what came up today, last minute, of why we're in this situation. So real quick, the overview of our budget is, last year we were $5,170,714, and this year we're $5,486,367, which is a 5.6% increase. Part of that overall increase is going to be our CIP line, which I'll get into, but really 24 lines have increased this year, 6 have decreased, and 39 remain level funded. As you know, my predecessors have always tried to come in this with a very conservative number. We try every year to do that. It takes months of planning. My team and I get together and we really look at our budget and we scrutinize it and we try to balance the needs, the wants for what we have in our agency, but also trying to continue to offer the great community policing and the police officers that serve this community that this town is expecting. So without further ado, the second page you'll see is kind of what our budget lines are broken up into. Our budget is broken up into operations and communications, for those of you who don't know. You'll see the trends line that I have showing here. Over the course of the last couple of years, you'll see it's going up. Wages is always a factor in our agency. We're personnel driven. Non-wages is obviously the operating lines, and CIP I added this year from last year to show how it's going up. I'll bring you to the next slide. You'll see the wages here, full-time, part-time, Medicare, longevity, retirement, all in this. It's a $188,000, $662 increase. That's with a $60,000 base pay for a new officer that I'm going to be asking this committee and this board to look at and approve. The overtime, I really kept it level funded for the operations side. I have a $19,500 increase. That is for a reimbursement. We have officers that participate in different task forces around the state. When they do work in those capacities, they are reimbursed money. So that's really, for us, we're anticipating that to go out and that to be reimbursed. So that's really what you're seeing for the increase. Fleet maintenance, we've added about $4,500 to that line. For us, we've looked at that line and see the historical trends, and you can see in your packet here, we're overexpending that line every time. We are finding that our cruisers, although they are newer, we're finding that we're getting kind of this, and I'll kind of go back to what Rick was saying, we're getting these cruisers that are coming, we're having more problems with the newer cruisers that are called the COVID cars. They're all coming after they've been manufactured through the pandemic, and we're seeing more and more issues with them. Those cars are now either being warranted or not, and then the cost for us for parts really is increasing. So some of these lines that you're seeing where these different, what we use and what our actuals are, is because our cars are having issues and we have to fix them. We've had some cars where it came off of the truck, we found out months later there was an exhaust issue. We went back to Ford, we talked to them, we went round and round and round, and we're still in debate with Ford if that came back from the manufacturer defective. We've been working that, but we had to pay the bill to the vendor to fix it. So we're increasing that as we're expecting, as you can see, our trends are going up to try to stay level with what some of our issues are. The next one's going to be your fleet supplies, tires. We are increasing that to buy a whole new set of tires for most of our fleet, for cruisers. Historically, we've been trying to buy a summer set of tires and then a winter set of tires. We're spending a lot of money on that. We're noticing that when we buy these newer cruisers, and Ford gives us a new car, depending on the situation, they manufacture a different wheel or a different body style, so now we're in the process of having tires that are smaller than the tires that are on the cruisers that we have. So we've decided, instead of trying to do a summer tire and a winter tire, which then wreaks havoc on DPW, who do all the swap over for us, we're looking to now purchase one single all-season tire that long-term will actually decrease that overall budget. But currently in our supplies, we do not have any spare tires or any tires to switch over, so we need to start building our tires back. We experience flats because we're driving these tires in these cars multiple miles and hours a day. We experience either picking up different sharp objects in the cars, or maybe we pop a curb and we pop the tire. We then have to take that tire. We have to go get it fixed. Part of the problem, and I'm just kind of get deep into the weeds, is when we bring our tires that have a hole in them to Tire Warehouse or to other vendors, they recommend, because the way we drive our cars and what they're needed for, that they do not patch them. They say you can patch them, but they say it's not safe. We don't want to assume that liability of putting a tire back on this cruiser and then potentially one of our officers or potentially gets into a high-speed pursuit and that tire fails while they're driving. So they always recommend replacing the tire totally. So that's where we're looking to, this next year, build that inventory of our newer tires for our cruisers as we move forward. Third is, we're experiencing these newer cars are only getting about 15,000 to 20,000 miles per these tires that come from the manufacturer. That is not even a full year, depending on our cruisers. So we're looking at these cruisers going through a cycle, almost a year, and they already need new tires. So we're just adding money to this year's budget to try to build back these new tires. You'll see the next big increase that we have is equipment needs. Thank you. We are at the point where our tasers that we carry, which aren't actually tasers, they're actually called phasers. It's a name brand that we bought back in 2016. They are end of life. The company, I believe, is probably coming to end of life. We're experiencing more and more problems with getting our officers certified to instruct it. Anytime one of our phasers malfunctions, we're experiencing delay times to try to get them back. It's becoming a problem. And sadly, I think we're the only agency in the state that carries phasers. Everybody else uses the actual taser. So we are looking to upgrade our entire taser line from Axon, who's our body camera vendor. So we're starting that process. So what you're going to see is an increase in that line, and that's really to absorb that cost of getting these new tasers. I will tell you that we are adding this into the operating line. It's going to be a 5-year operating line because to get all of our tasers and our instructor and everything we need for the taser cartridges, you're looking at about $114,000 for our whole agency. So we chose to put it in the operating line and keep it there so we can break that $114,000 up over the course of 5 years and continue to operate, and in the end of that 5 years, determine whether or not we need to replenish that line again. It's something that I think at this point we can't afford to not give that tool to our officers in their tool belt to be able to help not only de-escalate but not utilize any other kind of weapon or tactic besides having that non-lethal weapon. Second point to that is currently in our inventory, we do not have, every single officer does not have a taser. All of our patrol officers have them, but not everybody. I do not have one assigned to me. I do patrol details, I don't have one. So we are looking to, this increase will give all of our officers their ability to have everything they need to be able to be equipped when they're out in the street.
Here.
Not yet, Rick. Maybe next year. The next line you'll see, which had an increase, but your new budget, and I'm just going to be right up front with you guys. I cut that today by $12,650 because I found out today that one of my officers is part of that employee development is our reimbursement for their education that the town provides. We had money in that budget plus training for an officer who no longer is seeking reimbursement for their law degree. So that money that was allocated in there, I was budgeting for next year to reimburse that officer for their education for their law degree. They have now asked me not to add that money in there as they're not seeking that reimbursement. So I just put that on the table now, so when you saw the difference in that increase, you're seeing it go right back down, that we're no longer going to seek that reimbursement.
So, just so is the new number 12,650, or is
That's
14,000
the-
being cut?
The cut that the increase that we had in that line was 14,000.
Okay, but the
500.
updated number is 12,000.
No, so what we had was, let me just get to it.
Okay. This is 14 minus 12. Okay.
Are you good, or you want me to keep going with that?
I'm good, thank you.
You sure? Okay, because I wanted to make sure I gave you the right number. That's the actual cut from that overall line that we presented.
Does anyone have any questions for Chief on the increases?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
There'll be,
I thought you were saying thank you.
For the tasers.
Yes.
So this will get every officer a proper taser. And
Yes.
but within this money here that you're budgeting, you're also getting everyone a body camera?
So what we're actually doing is we are using some of those funds to refresh our body worn cameras. Currently, they're end of life as well. So we've had them since 2016. We are trying to slowly work our way into buying new ones. So each officer, so we don't have to enter into an agreement with TASER to get these because we already have them. So really for us, we're just trying to replace all those body cameras next year. So we have 28 body cameras that we need to replace. There is also an offsetting revenue of a grant that we're potentially applying for too that could help offset that.
So of the, I'm sorry, Meg, my fault.
Sorry, I might have not answered that properly.
Thank you. So of the 25,000, the majority of it's going to your taser refresh, but every officer will still not have a new body camera? So every officer will have a taser, but they won't all have a camera when you're done. Is that an accurate assessment?
So what you're seeing is you have $22,000 of that budget line, because the budget line total increase becomes $33,340. So we increased it by 25. So 22,000 of that is for all the tasers, and 21,000 would be, 10,000 of that would be to get everybody a body camera with an offsetting grant.
For the grant. Thank you, Chief.
Because currently, yes, thank you for currently we don't have everybody outfitted with a body camera. We're trying to get to that point.
Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. Chief, so, new officer, so what warrants a need for another officer?
If you don't mind, can I finish the presentation?
sure.
I do have some slides at the
Yeah.
end that can go through that.
Okay.
So
Sorry, Chief. Do you want to talk more about that?
if you want to skip to the bottom of my presentation, absolutely.
We can wait. We can
You
do
said
it in
you
order.
talk about
Yeah.
increases, so that's why I asked that question.
No problem.
I'm sorry, I did put it in there. I put it at the end to kind of over.
That's okay.
So
Can
the
we just
incre-
finish up this page, if that's all right?
We good?
Yeah. Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a question. Thank you, Chief. I have a question around the body camera grants. The state recently passed grant funding for body cameras. Have you looked into that at all? And what does that look like?
That's
Because
basically what we're looking at.
Okay,
So
that's the grant funding.
It's,
Great. That's what it
it's
was.
roughly, we're looking at about a $21,000 and some change price that if we can get the grant, it'll offset 50%, so about 10.5.
Okay, great.
So that's what we're going to try to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for the equipment with the 25, you said that's 25, it'll be 25 for the next 5 years?
It'll be, let me pull that back up. It'll be just about, it's about $22,805.
Okay, for the next 5?
Yes.
So because you're doing it in waves, does that mean that, does that mean that officers will be getting their new tasers in waves? So what will happen?
No,
to
so what Axon does is they basically give you your quote. Here's a $114,000 quote for all your officers to have tasers, all the ammunition, and an instructor. What they do is they break it out into a 5-year contract.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll say, yes, if the board approves it, the budget passes, we'll make sure that we're all set and as everything lines up. We will basically sign that agreement with them. We did the same thing with our body cameras and the cloud storage. We'll go through that, and then they'll ship us all the stuff up front. So hopefully, if everything works out, we'll get all of the new tasers. Everybody will be outfitted. They'll go through the training and everything next year when we get it, and then we'll just pay that down
Okay.
over the course of 5 years.
Thank you.
And they all, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief. What line are the tasers and body camera? They're just under your equipment line?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we good to move on to decreases? Any other questions on that?
So decreases is pretty cut and dry. Accreditation went down $9,500. If all of you remember last year, we budgeted for this year for our CLIA conference. We went there. This year, we received our award. I have not put the press release out yet because I wanted to make sure I had it in my hand to have it, but we did. We successfully were reaccredited. I'm very proud of my team that helped us achieve that. It was definitely a team effort. So we dropped that down because we're not traveling this year. We're just keeping that line at what we normally pay, which is our accreditation fee. Longevity went down, and retirement went down as well. Obviously, most of us know that we lost one of our longtime employees, Denise, who retired after 39 years, and some of her longevity and retirement went down. Bringing into communications budget, so really your increases were your wages, and then your overtime, and that's us projecting what we think we're going to see an increase in wage and overtime as the wages go up. Communications is pretty cut and dry. I also try to put in there the decreases with communications on the same line, but this year we did not see any decreases. Real quick, a reflection of what you're seeing just from this year, 2022 to 2023. Really for operations, it's just a quick. Here's the changes when it comes to the wage lines, non-wage related lines, just some numbers there. Communications has the next page, also has the same reflection, just some differences in wages, non-wage related reflections. Next slide, you'll see what our kind of, try to break it down for everybody to kind of see it. What we're really seeing is our total budget increase here this year, which, again, this is not an accurate reflection, so I will update this now that I'm looking at this and send it back to you guys. That total reflection of increase 315 is not accurate. It went down because of those cuts that I've already came to you guys with. So really, just to kind of sum it, you'll see kind of where our budget lies. The majority of our budget is with wages. This year increase, the majority is going to be our CIP, which I'll get into, and then some non-wage increases. Again, I'll update this and send this to you all. Next slide is the 2023 CIP request. I'm not really sure kind of where to go with this, but the issue is this. I'll share with you what 2022 we have been cursed with, and I'll share with you what we're thinking about in 2023. So every year we ask for 3 cruisers for our CIP. We are very lucky and fortunate for the taxpayers to vote in our budget this year, and we ordered our cruisers as soon as our budget got passed this year. We ordered them, and we waited, and I just told the board, I think it was a couple weeks ago, that we were told by our dealer that we are not getting our cruisers. They canceled our order. So the manufacturer cancels the order. So essentially what happens to us is we had state bid at about $32,000 per car and some change, and they told us that they're not ordering, they canceled our 22 cars. They had a one-day window for us to order 23s. We did not order 23s, but our dealer was nice enough to order the 23s for us in that window, but that went from $32,000 and some change to about $45,000 a car, just like that. We were lucky enough, we did some research, we found a different vendor that we don't normally use in Massachusetts. I went to the board, we made some adjustments, and we are actually lucky enough to secure 3 cars that were on the lot, 2022s, that were about 3,000-ish and some change higher than what we asked for originally. So it wasn't that huge of an increase. But the reason why I'm saying this to you all is that what I was projecting for 2023 initially has now gone out the window. What we thought and we anticipated per car, fully outfitted, brand new car, with all the equipment we need for our officers in there, with the emergency lights, all the decal striping, we're running about $48,000. The new cars for 2023 are $45,000 and some change alone. Now you're adding our outfitting, which is going to be, we usually run about $11,000 to outfit that with the lights, all the cages, everything we need. There's an increase there projecting next year. And our vendor who does our decals, I'm not really sure how they keep doing it at the price they do. I think they're giving us a donation. They're not telling us, but they haven't told us there's an increase, but I'm projecting at least a $500 increase for them. So what I did was I added the increase in this slide for everybody to see that I think when I presented back in June, the CIP, my number was totally different. And now I'm estimating that we're going to probably be around $60,000 a car for our new cars. And that's just the volatility in the market and where we're at. So that's kind of where we're at for that. Any questions before I move on from that?
What was the basic car with none of the other stuff on it?
So we got state bid,
Yeah.
cheap. It was about $32,500 for the car. And then basically we add about 11 to 12, depending on our vendor, for outfitting, and then another $1,500, $2,000 for the decals. So all in, I think we were about $48,000 total. Now the base car, instead of 32, is now 45, just like that.
Yeah. So what's the chances of taking the equipment from one and putting the other?
Good question. So historically, we've always done that.
Yeah.
The problem is Ford keeps changing the cars. So we will have a car, so a 2019 will be this body length and this width. So our cages no longer fit, the light bars we have to readjust. So we've kind of just gotten to the point that we are getting to that point where it seems like the body styles are getting caught up and we can try to change that stuff over. We'll still see a cost increase, not increase, but we'll still see a cost because they have to install it. Part of our thought, though, is as we move forward with these newer cars, we're getting the latest technology. You're seeing different light bars that are, have different safety features on them that the older ones don't. And I'll tell the board and the committee this, what I don't want is for our officers to drive a brand-new police car using 15-year-old light technology. So, I mean, we can work with it, but at some point, we have to continue to upgrade the cages and the light bar as well.
Is there any other vendors other than Ford?
Well, I'm glad you asked. There is Dodge that we could get. I know that some agencies are running Dodge Chargers, some agencies
Yeah.
are running Dodge Durangos, SUVs. Some are running Chevy Tahoes, but I can tell you that I've done some research, preliminary, haven't really dove into it yet because it's a total paradigm shift from what we're used to. I would love to try a Tahoe, but I think we're running about $70,000 right now for a Tahoe. I know that different agencies are about 2 years out before they can even get that Tahoe, which would then talk to DPW when they're doing maintenance on our cars. You might be asked them, they might prefer Chevy over Ford, some of those guys, but we haven't gone down that road yet because I don't know that I'm ready to go to the board and say, hey, we're going to switch our, instead of Ford, we're going to go to Chevy or Dodge. It's a big change for us. I'm not saying we can't. We can try it. Probably try with one car, but I think everywhere I've heard Bedford's having issues getting theirs. They're done with their Chargers. I don't think they really like theirs. That might have changed. I know that their chief, he didn't like them. They went to a Dodge Durango and tried that. They also have a Tahoe. So he's actually trying multiple different companies, but that's where we're at.
I know in the past Chevy and Dodge has made police cruisers.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else does, but.
I mean, we could try, maybe get ourselves a little smart car, try to outfit that.
Stacy?
So you ask for 3 every year, which I'm aware of. What does that make your oldest?
6, so we try to do 3 years on the line.
Yep.
So that's the ones that you're seeing out in patrol, driving around.
Yep.
After that, 3 years, we bring them in, they swap them out, they go to what we call a staff car. So we keep those cars for typically, depending on how bad they are, we try to keep them on average for 3 years. So that's a 6-year cycle that we keep those cars for, and then if it works out, we send them over to Adam, and somehow he works them and rides them in DPW until, I think, literally the wheels fall off.
So the cars on the road with your duty officers, the oldest one would be 6 years out there driving?
Not necessarily. We try to get them into the oldest car they're going to be driving on the road for their day-to-day patrol is going to be 3 to possibly 4, depending on the cycle. So that's typically, I don't want to say 24 hours a day, because we try to break them in half, so one run for 12, and then they share. So you could run one car for 24 hours in that day, then if we're lucky, it gets a break for a day, and then it kind of switches. But they sometimes take them for detail, so they're constantly idling, driving. But yeah, so typically it's 3 to 4 years for them.
Could there be an option to go down to ordering 2 a year? I'm just throwing out an idea.
So we've done that in the past. I think my predecessors have gone down to 2. They have seen that, I guess the big question, Stacey, is going to be, we can try that and then see what happens to the cars as they get older and the mileage goes up and the hours run. Where are we at with maintenance?
Yeah.
And that's kind of and again, I'm not opposed to trying something different, but I think the trade-off has always been, we've historically been successful with this cycle that's keeping our cars pretty well maintained. They're not falling apart. I mean, some other agencies around us that some of you might know in the other side of the town, they're running cars that have hundreds of thousands of miles, and you're seeing these cars get towed away. They don't have enough cars to have officers go out and patrol their community. So I think what we're doing here is we're looking at that investment to our community to make sure that officers can get to where they need to go. But if we did do 2, we would just have to see where we go with the maintenance on the cars as they get older.
I do. How much do you think, like, the average miles you get after you retire? Is there like a number that you're around when you end a car? Is there? I know it's probably hard.
The mileage or the hours as well?
Whatever.
Because remember, as
Yeah.
I present to the CIP committee, and maybe I'm
Because if 3 has worked for so many years, I wouldn't want to take away 1, but I'm also thinking this is a huge jump in number. You're almost
Yeah.
doubling the number.
I know, so again, typically standard industry, and for the people who are on the CIP committee, I apologize because I'm boring you with the numbers, but it's, they say for every, 30, I gotta look it up, but basically, for the mileage that we have, there's, for every hour of engine hour is like a 33 mile. So as we're looking at, I got a, let me look just real quick. Yeah. So we had some spring numbers. I have another, so let's see what our oldest one. I know we were in the high, like the 90s, so we have one right now, it's got 102,000 miles on it. But then it has 12,000 engine hours, and I believe as each hour is worth 33 miles, is the way Ford kind of says it. So that's kind of, you gotta look at that. So if you have 12,000 miles, 12,000 hours, you're adding that times 33 miles to that 102. So, I mean, you know, we have one that we're looking to replace this year, that's got 108,000.
Okay.
So if we can get this to be replaced, that's gonna go to DPW, they're not gonna drive as much as we do, but that car in particular is a staff car.
Yep.
It's driven, you know, around town, but 108,000 miles with, that one has 10,000 hours. Now, again, this was put together in September, so we have some.
So you really think the switching of the 3 cars is what's necessary for the police department?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, I know when we cut one year, it took us a little bit to catch back up, to get to a place where we're kind of still moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any place that you can get the figures of what one of them vehicles in like City of Manchester, what do they run miles?
What does Manchester PD, what does Manchester PD have for mileage?
Like
Or
Manchester that has cars like ours. How many miles do they run them before they change them? I mean, and what kind of service do they get?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I know that they have, I think they have 2 dedicated mechanics to just their police department.
Yeah.
I know that their fleet is about 3 times the size of ours. I know they have the Fords, but they also have Impalas that they use.
Have what?
Chevy Impalas, the older cars.
Yep.
But I don't know that answer. I don't know. I don't even know where to begin to. I could call the chief and ask him.
They might have a record of it, you know? They must keep records like you do.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. Would you like me to look into that, Richard, or were you asking me?
It might be worth looking into, I don't know. You know, seems to me, in my own mind, that these new cars should go 150,000 miles as far as engine goes. You say it's 33 miles per hour when they use them. That figures into the idle time.
Yes. So
I don't know what
the idle time is why they add the mileage, because they say when the car's
It seems a
idle.
little heavy, but it's probably true.
I can only tell you what the industry standard has been told to me from Ford. I'm not a mechanic, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Chief, have you investigated whether there's any vehicles available at dealers other than the one that you've been able to find for the ones that were canceled?
So for this year, we did. That's what we had to do. We had to figure this out because we were basically told from our vendor that had state bid
Right.
that we ordered you, these new cars at 45,000. So we knew, we went to the board and basically said, here's our options. We found one that was in Massachusetts that we've never used before, a dealer, that had 3 cars, 22s. So we found those. Typically how we operate for the next year is we go to whoever has state bid. So if it's McGovern, state bid, if it's Capone, we just go to them. Problem, I think, is what we're seeing, and as Kelly said, is that we are experiencing, so if they say they have them in stock, and the Ford is the one who cancels the orders. They're not gonna build them. But they'll move on to building 23s and 24s before they fulfill the order that we put in March or April. So we can look at different dealers. The question becomes, is it state bid or is it not state bid? So if state bid is McGovern, that's the number it's a little bit cheaper, right? And they're saying, we're gonna order them for you.
Right, but the price that they're quoting you now for state bid is significantly higher than what you
So let me
expected.
make sure I explain this properly. What they gave us for a bid for that 45,000 was not state bid. That is what they were basically getting from Ford, saying, this is how much it costs. We asked them if they would honor state bid, and they said, no way. In fact,
I just wondered if, I have long-time experience with the automotive industry, so I was just wondering if in the future you would consider that same type of search to avoid, I mean, maybe you could get the same year.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get 22s or whatever you were ordering.
sure.
For your 23 purchase at maybe a different price.
Yeah, I mean, if we can find a dealer, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, in '23, I would be looking for, instead of state bid, search out for a '22 that's still new,
Right.
and that might be a little bit different of a cost.
Right.
Yeah, I think we could definitely do the research. I think part of the thought of what we're seeing is, when I went to the board for these 22s that were in stock in Massachusetts, of course, the sales guy says, everybody's in the same boat as you. Let me know if you're gonna buy them or not. Good luck, because we're selling these.
Right.
So we kind of said, we did like a soft, hey, I gotta go to the board, we're gonna hopefully get permission, please hold them for us until Tuesday.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're always fighting that, but we definitely could look into it.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Revenues?
Sorry, I really apologize, this is long-winded. The revenues, what you're gonna, I try to put that in there so everybody kind of sees what our contracts are. You're gonna see a huge change in our revenues. And I have a side note here that for a couple of years, the school district paid for one of our SROs. They're no longer paying for that. We absorbed that cost. For those of you who have questions on why, I think I would defer a little bit to Derek. He has more of the intimate knowledge of what happened, but if anybody has questions, I can try to answer it, but I think really what you're seeing is we absorb the cost of that SRO in our lines, and I believe the school absorbed some of those towns' lines, so it just kind of washed itself out, but that's why you see our revenues going down. Operations, we're seeing a few things down this year, but it's only up to October. We still have, some other monies that are going to be coming in this year, so. And 2020 is always the outlier because of COVID. So, if anybody else has any questions for that, I'm going to move into my pitch about the new officer.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Chief, you kind of breezed over that operations decrease.
The revenue decrease.
The revenue, thank you. The operations revenue decrease.
Yes.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that SRO cost was like 80,000 last year? Maybe?
Somewhere around
Abouts.
there. Yeah. I don't have the exact number.
So we're going from 140,000 to 61,000. We'll say abouts 80, is that SRO?
Where are you seeing 61,000?
16, sorry, 16,000.
That's the current number that we're seeing as of right now for the revenues that we have, that we haven't.
Okay.
We're still, other operation lines are your copying fees, your 91A requests, stuff like that, things that are always moving, parking tickets. I mean, I'll tell you right now, we're down parking ticket revenue.
Oh.
Yeah. Ever since we upped it to $100 at Glen Lake, everybody decided to run away.
Oh, all right.
But, so so your the operations number is, if it's 80, you're gonna see, but you'll see like 2019, we had 133, 104 for COVID, well, obviously, we didn't see a lot of revenue, and then 140 in 21, but that number is just where we're at right this second.
So that's year to date?
Yeah.
And just 80,000 of that is now that you're paying
It might
for
be-
the SRO?
So we were always paying for the SRO.
Right, no, I understand that. It was, I
So-
remember the school district was.
Yeah, so what used to occur would be the town would appropriate for the SRO and have an offsetting revenue, and then the school would appropriate for the SRO and pay us. So the property taxpayer is paying the school for the SRO. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense. If the chief and the school and the community want that SRO and we think it's appropriate, why doesn't the town just pay for it? So now the property taxpayer, instead of paying to the school and then the school sending it over to us, instead of both entities appropriating for it, we appropriate for it and the revenue goes away, and then it came out of the school budget. So to the taxpayer, it's just I guess a different entity that they're paying to.
Okay, thank you. So, it looks so drastic because it's all, that 16,071 is just a year to date. When we get to the end of the budget, it'll look a little more like, oh, that's the missing SRO,
Right.
not missing plus.
And what I'd also
And those
like.
parking tickets.
What I'd like to add is this is the 2022, right? This is not me projecting what I think our revenues are going to be in '23. I'm just showing you a trend of where we're kind of at with our dispatch contracts, where our operation lines typically have been.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So, the 23 new officer position is this. When I started this position as a chief, and I did my interview with the Board of Selectmen, I'll share a little bit of, I had done a big analysis of our agency, and one of our weaknesses that I've seen over the years in our agency was a support service function. So what you're seeing on this next slide is our functional chart of where our employees work. And I'll try to, I don't have it on the screen, but I'll try to guide you to, if you look at that middle line where it says operations support, legal clerk, prosecutor, you'll see support lieutenant. That particular person, that officer, he or she, right now it's a he, is in charge of all those functions. Of the course of my career, I've watched that particular person take on so much support function that there's never any way for that person to strategically plan at a commander level and also project long-term new initiatives and things to do. I.e., Richard, looking at new cars. This particular person has to do all that research and look at that. Any type of facilities, they have to deal with facilities. We don't have a maintenance person in town, so they're looking at what does the facility need, what do we need to do to fix it. Sometimes they fix it for us. They deal with quartermaster, which is our equipment, our uniforms, all the ordering, all the fulfillments, all the inventory. They deal with all the cruiser fleet, the cruiser stuff, so all the fleet maintenance. They have to move the cars from here, there. They have to go to Auto Fair, they have to go to Unique, they have to move them all over. Typically, when they're doing that, they're using two people. They're taking a person off patrol or in the staff, and they're moving them all over the town. They're in charge of all of our training, all of our FTO. They're in charge of all of our recruitment, which sadly right now, we're not really doing well with getting ourselves out there to continue the recruitment effort. There's a few other things. They're in charge of volunteers, crossing guards, interns, and the Explorer Post. They also oversee communications, but communications has two supervisors. They also oversee records. Records is an integral part of all of our 91A requests, all of our records keeping, paper, anything that we generate paper, records puts it all into the folders, and then they secure them for our records retention laws. My pitch to this committee and this board is I've always had a thought that we need to split that job into two. And it's because it's too much for one person to do. It's just too much. And what we're seeing is this person that's in there is constantly coming to work every day and struggling to just, I kind of look at it as plug the holes of what's leaking today. So if they had a plan to do this, well, a car broke down, so that person's in charge of getting that car to DPW. So really what I'm looking for is assigning an officer to that position to help the lieutenant. And you'll see in one of your next slides that this officer is going to be not only dealing with support services, so they're also going to be doing community policing. As Rick alluded to, he wants another movie night. We need officers to be able to do that. We want to expand our footprint in the community policing. So this officer is not only going to help support, but they're going to be dedicated towards also basically doing more community policing programs. So what I've done in this slide is kind of broke down what we're looking at. So we are seeing an increase in training needs. We not only have a Law Enforcement Accountability Transparency Commission that has dictated from the governor's office some of our new training needs. They've kind of put a lot of pressure on us to go from, I think it was 8 hours to 24 hours now that we need mandatory training. We have to start researching new innovative trainings to develop our employees. We are dealing in a mental health crisis right now in this state, in our community, that our officers are, I'll say generally, they're in a good place to deal with, but not where they should be. So we're constantly looking for the ability to find new trainings, and then schedule the trainings and potentially facilitate the trainings. As some of you heard tonight, we're doing all hazards, massive training that I'm supposed to be at, where we have multiple communities in our town right now doing a huge training on what happens when we have a mass casualty incident or an active shooter situation. So there are 2 people dedicated to just facilitating that tonight and next week as well. We're finding that one person can't do that. It's just too much. We also are way behind the curve ball when it comes to recruitment. I feel like recruitment has kind of been sitting in the back burner, and it could be a full-time job, I think. Even though we might not have an opening right this second, we have to start looking at our young employees as a 4-year investment, right? Like, they're here, they're working for us, they're doing a great job, but they're looking for other opportunities that maybe Goffstown doesn't have. So we have to constantly have someone looking, marketing ourselves, getting out there, going to job fairs, going to schools, introducing themselves. It's a lot. I mean, we're seeing state police, we're seeing Manchester. I mean, Manchester's hiring people from North Carolina, California. How are they doing it? They have a recruitment team. They have a team that's dedicated to marketing their agency. So I'm looking for this officer to help alleviate some of that for this particular lieutenant. Not particular, but the position itself. I think it'd be a gross understatement to say that recruitment is one of our most important things, given the current climate of our country and our state when it comes to law enforcement officers. We are literally poaching from each other in this state. If we have an opening, we're recruiting officers from other communities, other towns are recruiting our officers. It is just, right now, it's tough. It's a vicious situation that we're in. This officer is also going to help alleviate some of the uniform, equipment, ordering, tracking, issuing of essentially 31, 32 police officers plus the other employees. They deal with all the quartermaster for communications. Big thing is, again, going to be handling our community policing. Most of you here, as Rick alludes to, know Jackie Pelletier, that you know that she's out there doing. She does a lot of that while she's running patrol. We've kind of said that we would like her to do this position, to be in this position. We know she can do it. The other part of this is by having that extra officer in the building most of the time, we're going to basically have them also help with all the fingerprint requests. People come in all day long looking to get their fingerprints done. They're having sex offender registrations that we have to go through. They can handle tours. They can handle minor calls that come in the building. They can help guide people that come in the lobby and ask questions that maybe dispatch can't do. Basically what that does is it keeps the patrol officer who is in downtown Goffstown kind of out there and not coming into the station, or the one in Penardville. Really, they're going to help with cruisers, getting those cruisers back and forth to where they need to go, and the facility needs. And really what we're trying to do is, with that new officer, we're really just trying to take that officer and put that position back on the road and take a person from the road and put it in this position. That's kind of the big picture, 30,000 foot where we're at. I can give you a little bit of statistics when it comes to, we've been allocated 31 now since I think it was 2018 is when we got the SRO position. Prior to that, we were allocated 30 in 2008. That was not funded in 2008 all the way, I think it was to 2014 is when they actually funded the position. We got that extra body. Before that, we haven't changed our staffing models since 2008, 2007, 2006, and then we're constantly dealing with the crisis of people coming and going and leaving. This officer will be here, but they'll also be able to help when we need them on the road. It's really, I think, right now for us is what we need for this agency to continue to evolve and move forward when it comes to these necessities, these needs. That's kind of the big pitch.
Any questions for Chief on the new officer?
So Chief, in the budget, you got $20,000 for radio communications, both in your budget and the communication budget. Now, I'm sure in other budgets, there's money for communications, and it's my understanding that you got $1,900,000 to put in a new radio system. So why do you need any more money in communications in these budgets when you're getting a new system, which will be, I'm sure, will be guaranteed for a certain period of time?
You're asking me why I'm adding more money in communications?
No.
Oh.
Why are you requesting money in communications, not adding more? I don't know, I can go back and look. You had money last year to repair the radios.
yeah.
Sure.
So-
That's the
so-
greatest thing. So now we're gonna have a whole new system.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Why do we need to put money for repairs and stuff right now when
Yeah.
it'll be warranted when it's installed? Now, I don't know when it's gonna be installed, or when it's gonna be finished. So I'm sure there's some laugh over there somewhere.
Yeah, so, just so I'm clear, when I was presenting of our police operations budget and our communications budget for our dispatchers. That's the dispatcher,
Right.
that side.
Tie the two
The-
together, it's 20,000.
Well, I think maybe if I wasn't clear, so when we present my entire budget, we break it up into patrol operations and communications, which is dispatch. Dispatch is about their budget for all of dispatch, for the employees, the employee development, for the equipment. That, for them to operate is about $925,000, right, ish, somewhere right around there. I think when you're asking about the radio equipment, we do have money in the line for next year for the radios because we haven't completed this project yet. So we are just starting this project, which is going to go into next year. Once all that is in place, right, we're going to have a one-year warranty if anything happens. But then part of that RFP, what the board's request is that we have a maintenance agreement with them. So we will at some point stop using our current vendor that we pay for the radio fixes, the equipment, and we'll be using the new vendor. But if I'm understanding your question, Chief, we can't not budget when we don't, for our vendor to fix our radios that are currently problematic, as you know.
Okay, yep.
If we don't know when they're gonna finish this install. Now,
Okay.
I can, just a quick tidbit, we waited, I think, a month for just concrete, and Station 17 is still waiting for concrete. So as they move along to these installs, we're at the mercy of our vendors.
Okay.
I don't know if did that answer your question?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
It's to pay for what we gotta do this year because it won't be done till next year.
And hopefully it's done earlier than later, but we're not sure.
Stacy?
So if it's done earlier and you get done in the middle of this year, then you'll have half of that left over.
Should, yeah.
Stacy, go ahead.
Thank you. Did you say you already had somebody doing this new position? This is
So
going to
what we've done is we've started on a temporary basis, see if we've moved Jackie over there to see if that was something that we need, and we've determined that that is definitely what we need.
Oh, okay, so this isn't like an added person. You're not going to have two of them, you're going to have one.
We're taking one person off the road, and I'm asking you guys to replace that person with an officer on the road.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have another question, totally unrelated. You showed us your facility, thank you very much. you showed us this very dilapidated
Yes,
thing
impound lot.
that was falling over, but I don't see that anywhere on here, so are you not looking to replace that? Because that is really unfortunate, because,
We are going to try to replace that this year with
Okay.
some money. Yep. We got some quotes. We're kind of in a place where we think we'll have in our facilities line where we've kind of, instead of replacing some rotting boards that we are looking at replacing this year, we're considering the rotting boards on the building as part of the rotting impound lot. So what, we've seen a quote, we've got a couple quotes that I was going to let the board know, but yeah, we're
Okay.
going to try to get that done, and we have to.
yeah, okay, good.
Because we just took 2 cars last week for an incident that sat in our bays instead of in that impound lot.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions for Chief?
Sorry I'm long-winded.
Great. All right, great, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have one more presentation, Derek, for Town Hall. We're just gonna take a quick 3-minute recess. People can stretch their legs, fill their water, go to the restroom. It's been almost 3 hours, so just gonna take a quick break. We'll do till, till 45. We'll be back, please. we have the town hall budget, which is tab number 2. Thank you.
Administration, too.
All right, Derek, whenever you're ready.
All right, great. So yes, again, we're tab 2. You have the detail lines there, but I'm primarily going to be going off the packet that's at the back there. Again, this is for town hall that covers administration, town clerk, and elections, finance, our tax collection, IT, which supports the entire town, our assessing department, also referred to as revaluation of property, planning, zoning, and economic development, other general government, so that's you folks here for your minute taker budget committee, historic district commission and conservation, building, as well as human services. On the next page, you have a little bit of a breakdown of what the 2023 admin budget is. As you can see, about 2/3 of our budget is wage and related costs. We have 19 full-time employees as well as 2 part-time employees. We do have a handful of per diems that work as we get closer to elections or to fill in for building inspector for vacations and those items. But that's really what the majority of our budget is. The other big piece of our budget, as you can imagine, is IT, internet, and phone. Again, this supports all the departments with laptops, desktops, all our servers, all our networking, and as you can imagine, quite a variety of mobile equipment for police cruisers, ambulances, DPW, all those. So on the next page, you see the comparison between 2022 and 2023. There's a significant increase in the request. The majority of that I will speak to. Again, that's about a $350,000 or 13% increase. And I would say about $200,000 of that is an ask. Those are new requests that are being put in before you. And we'll go through those next on the next page. Included in this budget, we have a request for a full-time HR coordinator starting on April 1st. So this is right now, this is 9 months that you'd be seeing. If approved, it would go into future budgets. Right now, all the departments do all of their own HR, and it's been working out pretty good, but the HR laws and HR training, I feel that we've fallen behind a little bit. We also, I think every department could benefit from some assistance with recruitment, the initial scan of applications, things like that. So, as well as reviewing policies and staying up to date on those. Another ask, like the other departments, Town Hall is fully non-union, so there is a 3% matrix adjustment, and you see that that equates to about $29,000 in wages and related lines. The next item you'll see, and this is in the admin portion of the budget, under consulting, I've requested $500,000 for a townwide classification and compensation study. This was last done by the Select Board in 2016. At that time, it was done by MRI, and the Select Board adopted that classification and wage matrix, and we've been using it ever since. Especially in the last year, we've seen that we are not competitive with certain jobs, and we're also getting some matrix compression between, especially in some of the departments, the first responder departments, where you have more of a hierarchy. You've got a firefighter, a lieutenant, a captain, all those. We're starting to see some compression there. So we believe that it's time to once again do a classification and compensation to see what we should be doing. You have a reduction in elections. Again, we go from 3 elections down to 1 next year. In finance, the big highlight is we will be going on Monday. We'll be bringing forward a recommendation to the Select Board in response to bids submitted for auditing services. This is, I believe, the higher of the two, so this is the new auditing firm. Additionally, we are starting to see that we need a single audit for federal funds, and every 2 years we have to do an OPEB audit, which is for our other pensions, yeah, and benefits that gets, they got to look at. Tax collection, minor, reinstating travel associated with employee development that had fallen off due to COVID. In assessing, we're reducing legal by $5,000, cutting that in half from $10,000. We were anticipating a court case in this year for related to an abatement that did not occur, so we were able to drop that down a little bit. Another one of those asks that I talk about was the new website. Right now, we have a town-developed website that is maintained by departments as well as IT. We feel, and I think we've heard from the community, that we are not as user-friendly as other New Hampshire communities that are using websites that are primarily built for those uses. And the ask is to, the $40,000 would be to go out to bid and change over to a new website and then continue on with that. That would additionally allow departments to more easily post to the website rather than send in requests to IT and then free up some of IT's time. In 2022, as part of the radio project, we did network redundancy with our fiber up to the tower. So that's an increase there of $11,000. And then between software and hardware increases, we have about $70,000. The cost of laptops, desktops, mobiles are all going up. Our software license are all going up. And yes, $70,000 is a big increase. However, we have about 190 users between full-time, part-time, those per diem that might have to have a username because they help out with absentee ballots, as well as we have a handful of boards and committees that receive it, so it flows through our server. So 190 users, over 12 months, over 70,000, you're talking about a $30 increase per user per month. Other general government, we have reductions. Conservation Commission has done some great work with Glen Lake and Namaski Lake to reduce milfoil. So we're seeing a reduction in the ask from those two lakes. And we're also seeing less people request a printed copy of the annual report. And then Human Services, this is direct assistance. Last year, we shaved it down by $10,000, and if you look at our actuals, again, that is, we are very low. I think a lot of that is, right now, the state has numerous programs out there for people for electricity, for heating oil, as well as rental assistance, so we're able to tie those people in with the state resources. And then finally, CIP and special articles. This is a significant decrease. As you recall, last year there was network upgrade. And this year, all we're really asking for is an election trailer. Every year, Rick and his team and Adams, DPW guys, and every once in a while some fire guys, they all come over and they take everything out of the room at Town Hall, they pile it up, they throw it on the trailer, we bring it over here, we set it up, we put it back in the trailer, we get it back down, we get it into a room. So the idea is to get a little bit of efficiency. Those items that do not need to be secured, signage, you know, some of the different non-perishable items that can be stored, simply put them in a trailer, make sure that it's weather tight, protected from any pests, and just put everything in there and roll it out when we need it.
Long overdue.
So those are the highlights. I'd be happy to go through any questions that you might have about either the highlights or anything that you see. I know you're seeing the budget detail for the first time tonight, so anticipate questions next time we come before you, but again, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Evelyn?
Yeah, Derek, I'd just like to clarify, when you mentioned the townwide classification and compensation, you said it was 500,000, and it should just be 50,000?
It should be 50,000, you are correct. Yes.
And you,
Look at, you already saved us money.
and you overlooked the changes for planning, zoning, and economic development?
Oh, thank you, yes. Planning, zoning, and economic development. The biggest item there is we collect impact fees when a new dwelling unit is created, whether that's a new single-family house or somebody splits and adds an apartment. Those impact fees have not been updated in a significant amount of time, and under state law, we have to stay current with that or could face having to return those to the people that paid them.
Other questions?
Yeah, Derek, on zoning and economic development, there's a line there, legal services.
In the actual budget.
He's looking at page 5 of 26. Line 45020.
Yeah, well, when you go way back to 21, there was 20,000 there. You spent 32. In 2022, it was 25,000, you only spent 15, and you requested 25. So is there any chance just what does that cover?
So that covers any time that the town is members of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. So if we have a general question that is not going to involve a case that might go to Superior or Supreme Court, we can reach out to them for free advice.
That's a lawyer?
Through New Hampshire Municipal Association,
Okay.
yes. But
Okay.
when we have to reach out to our town attorney, or we are taken to court for an appeal, that is where that is coming out of. A recent change, there was, when you used to appeal planning board decisions or zoning board decisions, you went to Superior Court, and they scheduled a court case about a year in advance, so we knew what was coming up. There was a change a few years ago where anything related to housing can go to a housing appeals board, and you're before them in 90 days, and our attorney has to defend either a planning board or a zoning board decision. In 2021, we were before the Housing Appeals Board, and that ran us probably $6,000 to $8,000 in just that case. So that $15,716 is through August because we would not have received the September invoice yet. So that's about, 2/3. So yes, it is a little bit low, but one of those housing appeals pops up and all of a sudden we're overexpended like we were in 2021.
There's another line right after that, consulting service.
Yep.
You didn't spend anything in 21. You've only spent $120 this year so far, and you get $12,000 in there.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about our budget reports is the 2021 actuals, we got to the end of the year, we had a contract with Hoyle Tanner to review our development regulations. We encumbered those funds. They then go into a carry-forward status. They don't show up here as an actual because they are in another location in the database. So those funds were encumbered forward to review our development regulations that the planning board uses. This year, we are a little bit short simply because that project from 2021 is still behind. We were going to move on to our zoning ordinance and look at that. So that is why I've actually removed that 2,500 and replaced it with 12,000, again, for that impact fee study.
I know this is a lot for the end of the night from Derek, so if people want to take time to go through this and ask for follow-up questions for next meeting, we can certainly do that if everyone would like a moment. I realize it's quite late, so does anyone have any additional questions or anything they'd like to go through a section line by line? Go ahead.
I have one more question. Thank you. The bottom of that planning, zoning, and economic development section, there's the SNHPC dues. But we haven't spent any this year. Is it just not due yet?
Usually we get the invoice in October.
Okay.
So I anticipate that we would get the invoice here any day now.
What does it stand for? What is it?
Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, it's the regional planning office. They help with traffic analysis, traffic studies. They provide the town their traffic counts. We've contracted with them before. They helped with the town's master plan in 2019 and 2020. And they serve as our regional planning office. So they also are involved with the 10-year state plan and work with us to get projects under the 10-year state plan.
And then I have another question about the elections trailer. Where would it be stored?
Hoping DPW would graciously host it for, and like, again, we'd have to make it weather tight and make sure that no pests get into it, but yes, that's what we'd be thinking.
Derek, would the voting booths go in that trailer as well?
So the voting booths, yes, those things that collapse up and down, the ones that go on the tables. Again, anything that doesn't have to be secured and controlled by the town clerk would go in there.
Any other questions for Derek? So select board members, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Select board members?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mark? Second by? One of you? Both of you? Okay, perfect.
Maybe we should end it earlier.
All right, the select board meeting's adjourned. Thank you to all the budget committee members for joining us. As Derek mentioned, if you have follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to Catherine, who can facilitate questions and answers to Derek to disperse next meeting, or to the department heads directly if you think it's more of a operational behind the scenes that you'd like to know.
Thanks for having us.